Man, so obviously I'm in a different place right now. I moved out of the Airbnb I was staying at yesterday, and I don't move into my new one until Thursday, so I'm in a little bit of transition period right now, so I'm staying with family for the time being. So I had to kind of do a makeshift setup here. And not only that, when I was setting up my setup, I stepped on my microphone USB cable, and it has a different connector than your typical USB cable, and I don't have another one, so I have to use my lapel microphone. So hopefully the audio quality isn't too bad. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer. But this is my makeshift setup for now. Got to make do with what you have, right? Can't wait to get back to my own studio. But anyway, I didn't know if I wanted to do this video or not, but there's been some interesting developments over the past, 48 hours that I think deserve to be talked about. So before I go further, just in case this is the first time you're watching this series, I'm very heavily involved in political work in my line of work. Not so much in my current job, but especially in the past, I was very heavily involved in political polling, focus grouping, interviewing, survey design, political advertising strategies, and all that type of stuff. So I just being in tune with some stuff that the average person or pundit might not be in tune with. So that's kind of what I bring to the table here. I'm not just some kind of random talking point, just pulling things out of my rear end. I actually, like I said, I can see things that other people might not be able to see. So here's predicted. If you followed me last week, I made $500 worth of bets, but I deposited another $1,000, so I'm at $1,500 now. So before I see how they're doing, just looking at the map right now, Arizona's been interesting today. This has been flipping back and forth all night. It's pretty crazy. It's 1 minute it's red, 1 minute it's blue. I'll talk about Arizona later, but North Carolina is one of those states that have kind of cemented itself. But anyway, I'm going to click on what I have from last week and just kind of give an overview of what I did last week. So as of right now, my total investments are up $44. So I could cash out right now for a $44 profit, 45 now. My top ones being Texas. Like I said, I'm from Texas. My entire family was. Trump's not going to lose Texas, guys. It's not going to happen because I have a lot of Christian friends and very socially conservative friends and family who did not vote for Trump in 2016 in Texas because he wasn't Christian enough. They didn't like him, blah, 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 the typical things used against him. But they are all falling in line this year and voting for him. I know at least probably 15 people that fall into that category. And on the flip side, I don't know anybody who voted for Trump in 2016. Like I said, I'm from Texas. I know a lot of people who voted for Trump. But I don't know anyone who voted for him in 2016 who's not voting for him this time. I think the media likes to run with the regretful Trump voter narrative, but it's not based in any reality, at least from what I've seen in polling. If that were true, it would show up in two places. It would show up in the crosstabs of media university polls, and it doesn't. Trump usually doesn't lose more than single digits of the Republican base in the crosstabs. Very rarely does he go over. Arizona is ground zero for the what you would call the Never Trump Republican movement. And when I say that, it's because that's where the McCains are at. The Jeff Flakes of the world. And if you look at the crosstabs for Arizona polls, he does lose some Republican support there, but it's not anything major. But it's not the case in any other state, really. So the myth of the regretful Trump voter, at least from what I see, there's no, it's not based in any sort of reality. And second, it would have shown up in the primaries. New Hampshire is a good example because they really went all in on the Never Trump Republican candidate in New Hampshire, the New Hampshire primary this year, Bill Weld, and they threw everything they could behind him so he could have a good showing, and he didn't even get 10% of the vote in New Hampshire. He didn't even get 10% in Manchester. And same thing with Joe Walsh. He was another Never Trump Republican candidate who ran in the primary, who thought that there's still a large number of Never Trump Republicans who were ready to vote for a Republican other than Trump in the primary because he's not, Christian enough or too mean or whatever. Joe Walsh thought there's still a large percentage of Republicans that fell in that category, and that's why he ran the Republican primary campaign, and he got booed off the stage in Iowa, which is just a state, I lived there, a state full of the socialist conservative types. So I just think if there's a strong Never Trump movement, like a bunch of Republicans voting for Biden, there's no basis of reality for that. So it looks like my gains continue to go up. I mean, it's up to almost $50 now. But like I said, Alaska was like one of those sure thing bets. I think it was at like 88 or 89 cents when I made it. Like that in Montana, that's why I made them. Anything like at 89, that's a sure thing. I went ahead and pulled the trigger on. But Ohio's another one. Like I said, Ohio, it's very difficult to have a 9-point swing in a single election. But anyway, I'm not going to go down the list, but like I can sort them by largest to smallest. So like my biggest gain right now, I would imagine would be Iowa. Yeah, I was going to say Iowa before it came up. And so moving on to the subject of Iowa. There's a very big development that happened on Saturday. So a poll came out for Iowa, and you know I've said what I said about polls, but there's an Iowa poll by Ann Selzer, who's considered the gold standard of Iowa polling, not just for like presidential races, but especially the Iowa caucuses, where she has like kind of a national platform with her polls. It's considered the gold standard of Iowa polling. And the poll came out as Trump +7, and that was the same result that she came out with for the final Iowa poll in 2016. So that kind of sent a lot of shockwaves, because a lot of media university polls have been coming out for Iowa earlier in the day, showing either Biden up slightly or Trump up slightly, but neither candidate up by more than a point or two. And then all of a sudden, Ann Selzer comes out with the +7, and that kind of really sent a lot of shockwaves, because it signaled a lot of things. A, that it's the exact same poll from 2016 where Trump ended up winning the state by 11, and of course, this happens every time. And then also, you know, it might show that the so-called, you know, shy Trump voter is not, or what is it called? It might show that Trump's not bleeding as much support as people think he is. Why won't my camera turn back on? I know it's not out of battery. Yeah, this is a danger of using a GoPro for things like this. Like, hold on, guys. It was an 83% charge when I. So here's what I'm gonna have to do. I'm gonna have to plug it in. Sorry, guys. I'll be right back. Yeah, like I said, this is a different setup that I'm not used to. And usually I had the GoPro plugged in, but I had it at 100% charge. So I'll be right back. Oh boy, I'm gonna have to use my computer cam. All right, I really apologize. I've lost 2 cameras and a microphone over the past like 2 weeks. This is ridiculous. But I mean, I have to use my computer webcam now. So because the GoPro, even though I plugged it in, will not turn on. So I don't know if it like burned out or what. But anyway, returning to talking about that Iowa poll, it's a big deal because up until this point, I had a suspicion, and so did a lot of other people, but I had a suspicion that polls were hurting, especially the media university polls. And what I mean by hurting is that hurting is actually a term that I think applies to sports betting very much. So when I was building out my baseball model, right, I thought about hurting my baseball model because I would compare what the results of my model were to the Las Vegas spreads, right? I would look at the odds, and if my model really like diverged that much from the Las Vegas odds, I was like, okay, either my model sees something that Las Vegas doesn't, or I need to make my model closer to what the Las Vegas odds are because I'm not doing something right. And so that's what hurting is. Hurting is when you have like a poll result that diverges from like what the consensus is, what the average is. You're like, okay, maybe I did something wrong. So you change the weights around, you rework it to make it more in line with what the consensus is for the polling averages. So I feel like that's been my suspicion here for this election cycle. I feel like these, especially the media university polls, are hurting. They're hurting their outliers and making them more in line with consensus because they don't want to, jump out from the pack for a lot of reasons. But Ann Selzer did not do that. Her Iowa +7 is way different than all the other Iowa polls that have come out. So either Ann Selzer truly did find an outlier, or all the other polls are hurting and she refuses to do so because she cares more about her reputation than being along with the pack. And I honestly think that the Iowa +7 is probably closer to reality. I used to live there. I think that Trump might not win by 11 again this time, but I just don't see it being that close. Like, I don't see it being like a nail biter. So maybe like a Trump +7 sounds about right. But yeah, so that's kind of the big deal. That's why that Iowa Selzer poll is such a big deal. Not because, it's just one Iowa poll, right? But it sent a lot of shockwaves because it's like, okay, maybe these media university polls are hurting, and maybe they are bearing their outliers. And there's a reason for that. Why would they do that? Well, it's because the ultimate gatekeeper of polls, Nate Silver, will take to Twitter and trash outlier polls. He does not like polls that do not line up with what his 538 model, I put it in quotation marks because he doesn't actually run a model, he's just a poll reader, but he will go to Twitter and just try to tarnish the reputation of polling outfits that produce polls that are not in line with what his 538 forecast says. He will try to bury you in your reputation. So I'm sure a lot of media university polls don't want to have their reputation buried. Some are brave and go against it, and then Nate will just outright exclude you from his 538 model. And if Nate, that's kind of a big deal. If you're a polling outfit and you're being excluded purposely from the 538 model, that's going to be a big deal for your reputation, because for whatever reason, people think Nate Silver is a good forecaster. He's not, but just play along with me here. But if, you're not being included, that's kind of like the club, right? If you're being included in Nate Silver's 538 forecast, you must be doing something right. But if you're not, people are probably going to think you suck, even though that's not the case. Like, Nate Silver removed Trafalgar Group from his 538 model for dumb reasons, and Robert Cahaley is very transparent about what he does there. And he doesn't even include Big Data Poll in there, even though Big Data Poll has out-predicted Nate Silver the last 3 election cycles, and it hasn't really been that close. So there's a lot of reasons for that. And so I think the Selzer poll really kind of lent a lot of credibility to the theory that the polls out there are hurting. And it really did send a lot of shockwaves. So that was the major development of the weekend. It's not just one poll. So with that being said, it's election days tomorrow. It's going to be interesting, but I'm just going to go down the list right here of my predicted bets and kind of say what I think about them now a week later after I made them. Remember, all these bets I made were value bets. Like, I bet them not because I think they're going to win, but because I thought that they were priced incorrectly to where I could get value on them. And obviously I made some good value bets as of right now because my portfolio is up $47. So Iowa, we already talked about that. I don't know what I bought in at it. Let me look. I might have bought it at like 60 maybe. Yeah, I bought it at 61 no for Joe Biden, and now it's up 15 cents, so about a 25% return so far. And like I said, I lived in Iowa. I know the state very well. I never saw this flipping back to Democrats. States don't shift 11 points, which is what Trump won it by last time. So obviously this is my best return at the moment, and I feel very good about that one. I still think even the price it's at now is a good bargain. Anything under 85 is a good price for Iowa if you want to get in. Electoral College margin of victory. So I'm up in here. I think I made multiple bets in this one. But like I said, all my bets are basically Trump between 10 and 149. And, this one I bought in at 7-1 odds, 6-1 odds, 9-1, and 16-1. So I just need one of them to hit to profit. And, like I said, I'm feeling good about all of them as well. This one might be a little optimistic, but, based on how things are going, it's going to be interesting. So before I continue, I want to show you guys a tweet. From Bill Stipend. He's the Trump campaign manager, and he did something that you will never see in political campaigns. he did something today. So look at these tweets he sent out. He basically was giving away their internals and their vote, like what their vote projections are for tomorrow. This is something in a normal campaign you keep close to the vest. And this is the first time he had tweeted in 5 days, and he's giving out his like Florida projections and how many votes they're expecting to get tomorrow in various states and how many votes they're expecting to get Biden to get in various states. Him and Tim Murtaugh, who's a Trump deputy campaign spokesman, I think, gave away this information. And this is something you do not give away. It's something you keep close to the vest. So the question is, why are they giving it away? And I think it highlights two things. And I haven't really heard a lot of pundits talk about these angles yet. So if you want to get something fresh from this show, this is going to be it. One, I think the reason they're tweeting this out now, because a lot of people are like, why would you give that away and give Democrats motivation to get out to the polls tomorrow to overcome, right? That's just good. Democrats are going to see that the Trump campaign is confident that no Democrats are going to show up tomorrow, and that'll get them motivated. Well, I think that the Trump campaign is releasing this information because they're very confident that Democrats are not going to turn out tomorrow. They've already kind of blown their load, so to speak. They've already done all their voting with early voting and vote by mail, and they just don't have a lot of votes left in the hopper. Because you got to remember, Democrats went all in on mail-in voting. They convinced their voters that you will die if you go vote in person. So vote by mail was their method. That was their get out the vote operation. The Democrats don't have a ground game. They tried to cobble one together at the last minute, but it's like I said, how can you cobble together a bunch of ground game workers who are terrified of COVID? And even their cobbled together one would not even come close to the ground game the Trump campaign has, which is just ridiculous how thorough and robust it is. But they have no ground game. Their ground game was vote by mail. That was kind of their vote by mail was their strategy to overcome lack of enthusiasm for Joe Biden. They thought if they could just mail everybody ballots and they could just fill it out at their own leisure on their own time, that they would be fine and enthusiasm wouldn't matter. But some of the early vote returns right now are not. It's looking like they missed their mark in some states. And the Trump campaign knows it. That's why they're giving this stuff out. They know that not only did the Democrats miss their mark in a lot of states, but that they're not going to be able to make up for it tomorrow. Even if they do a major get out the vote effort tomorrow, it's not going to happen, because I think one thing we really have to learn from this campaign is that it's candidates who get the votes out. The candidate themselves. You cannot replace that enthusiasm for a candidate. So a lot of people are like, well, Obama going to Philadelphia and Detroit's going to raise the enthusiasm for Joe Biden. I don't think it works that way. People you have to be enthusiastic about the candidate. You cannot be enthusiastic about the people shilling for him. But with that being said, I think, like I said, the Trump campaign knows that the Democrats don't have a lot of bullets left in the gun for tomorrow to vote. And so they're confident. So I'm like, okay, why else will they tweet out about that? Well, number two is I think they're starting to already draw the battle lines for the post-election battleground. Because they're trying to get ahead of the narrative being, if the Trump campaign has a good night tomorrow, it does very well on election day voting, and is ahead going into Wednesday morning, because like I said, I think this thing is going to drag out. But if they have a good showing and it's clear the polls are wrong, and they do something like win a state like Florida, which is called tomorrow night, which I think will happen, by the way, and Trump looks like he has a real shot, then the narrative is going to switch. It's going to switch to they're going to say that Trump stole it because all the polls said he was going to lose. There's no way Trump could have won based on these polls that we came out with. And I think that's another reason why all these polls are hurting. And this could get me in a lot of trouble speculating on this, but I think a lot of the reason these polls are hurting was so they could have a built-in excuse for a polling miss. So if all the polls heard and Trump ends up winning and they're all wrong, well, they have an excuse. They're like, well, everybody was wrong. No one could have predicted this. So they have an excuse for the polling miss. And the other excuse they can use is that Trump stole the election, which is, I think, based on, if you read the tea leaves, I think that's the battleground that's being drawn right now. Trump stealing the election, and they're using these polls to prop that theory up. And that's why I think the Trump campaign was releasing these numbers today, to get ahead of that narrative that Trump stole it. Because if Trump ends up coming through and winning, they can just point to these numbers. Well, this is what we had it at, and that's what happened. We didn't steal anything. So that's why I think those tweets giving away those numbers were a very big deal, for those two reasons. Looking at the tea leaves. But anyway, that's my theory. So moving on, Virginia 7, I think that's the Dave Bratt district in the Eric Cantor district, but I'm up there. You know, I think I bought it at a very low price, like 18 cents, I think. Oh, I bought it at 26 cents. And so the candidate looks like he's surging here because it's up, you know, nearly 50% return. But I didn't put any extra money in this one. But this is, like I said, I think we'll see a lot of this. This is kind of like what we're going to see in House races tomorrow. A lot of these Democrats, especially in Republican districts, so Virginia 7 is a Republican district, but the reason they were able to flip so many of those in 2018 was because the Democrat candidates ran as moderate independents. They did not say they were Democrats at all. I was in Texas 32 back in 2018, which is a Republican district. It used to be anyway. And the Democrat who ended up flipping that seat, he never once mentioned he was a Democrat in his ads, not once. He always talked about how moderate and independent he was. And I saw a commercial for his during college football the other day where all he talked about, because he's running for re-election, where all he talked about was how all the things he had worked with Republicans on. That was the whole commercial. Like, I worked Republicans on this and this and this. And obviously, a lot of these Democrats who ran in 2018 as independent moderates who have not been, who have voting records indistinguishable from Nancy Pelosi, are obviously catching a lot of heat from that. And Virginia 7 is one of those districts. They ran a moderate, independent, former CIA agent in this Virginia district, and she won like by 2 percentage points. And like I said, in order to win a district like Virginia 7, where immigration is a very big deal, like by immigration, I mean like Trump-style immigration, you got to, you know, basically run as a very, very, very moderate to conservative Democrat to win. So I think there might be buyer's remorse in this district right here, which is why I put money on it. Same with Iowa 1. I don't know if I have a bet on Iowa 1, but I used to live in Iowa 1, and it's the same thing there. Former CIA agent, running as a moderate independent, you know, who would be total moderate independent, beholden to nobody, and she's voted no different than Pelosi in Iowa 1. So a lot of buyer's remorse there. I know the people in Iowa 1, and they're probably not happy about that. And the Republican challenger in Iowa 1 is someone named Ashley Hinson. I know her because she worked at a competing TV station in Iowa that I worked at. She was an anchor at KCRG, very widely watched TV station in Iowa. I'm talking about like 20 ratings in the evening news in Iowa. So she has the name recognition. So that's another one. So I already talked about Alaska. You know, Alaska, it is what it is. It was just one of those guarantees under 90 cents that I bought. Texas Senate, you know, like I said, Trump's not going to lose Texas, and neither will John Cornyn. There's really not much to say there, although I have seen a lot of NJ Hager's ads in the Texas Senate race, and they're interesting. Like everybody else, it's the typical Democrat strategy that's been run since 2018. They pick like a moderate, former like CIA or military type to, you know, talk about how moderate and independent they are and really play up their military or CIA background. And that's all her ads are doing. Like her ads are her driving around Texas on a motorcycle and talking about how independent she is and how moderate she is, and, you know, and I just don't think Texas is going to buy it. All right, Arizona. So this is a state that's been flipping back and forth all day. This is ridiculous. 1 minute it's Democrat, 1 minute it's Republican. So I'm going to go to this market. I bought in. I know my shares are up here because I bought in at, I think, no 41. Yeah, and now no is selling for 48. So I have about a 16% gain right now. So Trump is up now. So this one flipped again. But here's what I say about Arizona. So Maricopa vote totals are coming in. So Arizona is a state where you can tell where they're registered by party. And Republicans are up a pretty decent margin in early vote totals in Maricopa. Let me see if I can get it. Maricopa early voting. Maybe add results. I don't know if that will give us what we need. I'll just do Target Smart. Like Target Smart, you have to take it with a grain of salt, but if it's a state that does have partisan registration, then you can get stuff out of it. So the thing with Arizona is that it is a majority Republican state, and Maricopa County, where Phoenix is a majority Republican county. There's more registered Republicans in Maricopa than there are Democrats. And the Republicans in Arizona actually had more new registered Republicans than registered Democrats this cycle. So according to Target Smart, in the entire state, Republicans are up by about 0.4% in early voting. This includes mail voting and early voting. And like I said, if you look at polls, Republicans are probably going to outnumber Democrats 2-1 in votes on election day. I think it's going to be more than that. I think it's probably going to be closer to 70-30 or 75-25. So if Republicans are up, here's registered party. So Republicans are actually down 0.9 in registered party. But if you do Maricopa, which is where most of the votes are at, so Republicans are actually down. They're up 0.5 in Maricopa, which is a big deal. If you win Maricopa, you're going to win the state, and then the unaffiliated at 20%. So this is interesting. This is very interesting. Basically, what the media polls are saying that have Biden up in the state is that basically the independent or the unaffiliated vote is the one that's going to put Biden over the top. Because like I said, all the media polls, the crossover vote is pretty even. Like the same amount of Democrats are crossing over to vote Republican and vice versa. So it's all about really the unaffiliated. And Rich Barris with Big Data Poll has been pulling this. Let me see if I can find it. Grand Canyon State Battleground Poll. I think that's what he called it. Big Public Polling Project. Because he actually has the crosstabs and everything. Gosh, I don't know where the link is. I wonder if I can find it here. Here it is. I found the link here. So I'm going to pull this up so I can show you. And I think he updates this. So this is real time. I might need to buy a new camera sooner rather than later. While I wait for this to load, I might need to buy a new camera sooner rather than later. All right, so this is real time. So Rich Barris, he's a very transparent pollster. He's a polling director at Big Data. He currently has Trump up by 2.5 in Arizona. But like I said, it's all about the independents. So if you scroll over to the independent, which is right here, he has Trump up by about 2 points in independents. Crossover vote, Trump is losing about 7% to Joe Biden, while Trump is only getting 2% of the Democrats. So like I said, it's about the independents, but there are more registered Republicans in Arizona than Democrats. So as long as those numbers hold, Trump should be fine. And then let's look at the Hispanic breakout. Here we go. So Trump is actually only losing Hispanics by about 16, which is pretty good. I think that's probably going to be the case tomorrow. I think Trump's probably going to come around 40% of the Hispanic vote nationwide. And if you take out California, it could be closer to 45%. But Rich Barris is very interesting with it, which is how he pulls. So another thing he pulled is, migrants. So people who move to Arizona from California. A lot of people think that Californians are leaving California and taking their politics with them. People are leaving California and going to Texas and turning it blue and everything. That's actually not the case. Trump is winning California voters in this poll 60-34. So that's what Rich Barris has found in Arizona and Texas. He says that people who migrate from California to states like Arizona and Texas are going to be more Republican leaning. And he says all the migrants from like the Northeast to Arizona and Florida and all that were going to be more left leaning. But here's another thing, so first generation. So first generation are people who have moved to Arizona and weren't born there and moved there. Trump is winning those by 17 points. It's their kids, second generation. It's their kids that are going for Biden. So that's another thing. But anyway, these, if you look at this poll and the crosstabs and everything, I think Trump's going to have a narrow win in Arizona, which is why the state has flipped. If you look at this, look at that. Trump has now crossed the stream. So I think the writing is on the wall in Arizona. The Republican base is coming home, and that's really what I think. That's where Trump was really struggling, and even the Media University polls is he needs to get his base to come home. But I think it's going to happen in Arizona. By come home, I talk about what I was talking about with Texas earlier, like the Republicans who didn't vote Trump in 2016 because they didn't like him. That are going to vote for him this time. I think that's going to be the difference in Arizona. All right, popular vote, margin of victory. So I threw some Hail Marys here. I don't think Trump is going to win the popular vote. I really don't. But I did put actually I didn't put any Hail Marys, but I did do the sure thing right here. I bet at 72 that that the Democrats will not win by 10.5% or more. And I think this is a no-brainer because Obama, like I said, Obama ran against the weakest Republican candidate ever, and Obama's probably the strongest Democrat candidate since JFK, and Obama could only win by, I think, 7 or 8 points nationally. Joe Biden's not going to win by 10.5. This was easy. I will be very shocked if this bet doesn't win. I got in at 84, so I'm pretty sure that one's going to resolve. But if you want to take some long shots on the Trump popular bet, I just don't think it's going to happen. California will do what they do and erase everything. But although I think I said last week, though, it might not be a bad idea to get some Trump popular vote shares because there's going to be panic selling when the early votes come in from non-California states and show Trump very competitive in the popular vote, just like in 2016. He was actually up most of the night in the popular vote, and then California started coming late. So if you think you can take advantage of panic sellers in that market, go ahead. But I wouldn't do it in that market. I just do it in the straight up popular vote winner market. Ohio. A lot of people think, especially on the Democrat side, think this is a 50-50 market. I just don't see it. So this is the Ohio margin. So I bought in at 45 cents, 3.5% or more. And I think this is it's at 50 now. So I've already gained about 10% on that. But Trump won this by 9 in 2016. I'd just be surprised if the lead gets down to under 3.5. I would. I really would. I don't think it's a toss-up state that people are saying it is. Especially with, I think that's another ripple effect of that Iowa poll. Because Iowa always votes to the left of Ohio every year. Every year they vote to the left of Ohio, except 2016, right? But that's usually the case, a point or two left of Ohio. So if Iowa is +7, then I don't think Ohio is going to be much far off from Iowa. So I think that's a good one right now. Maine Senate, not really that interesting of a market, but the thing with Susan Collins is she always overperforms her polls, always. It's a very hard state to pull, but that's, Susan Collins, like I said, I think she's only at like 12 cents now, but still, just one of those long shot bets. All right, which party won Texas in 2020? I actually have $111 here tied in, and I bought in no at 70. I'm from Texas. I know the state very well. I just don't see it. I don't. Although it's a lot of people are pointing to the high turnout and everything, but it's not always about turnout. If you actually look at the counties that are turning out, it's like a lot of the very red counties are turning out in high numbers as well. The one thing that might worry a Trump backer here would be the Harris County situation. There's been a lot of, rumblings about some shenanigans going on there, but I don't think it'll be enough, even if that is true. North Carolina, this was kind of the Arizona, North Carolina was kind of the Arizona of Saturday and yesterday. It was flip-flopping around a lot, just like Arizona is right now. But I think it's been pretty steady Trump for the past 24 hours or so. Yeah, he's expanded his lead over probably the past since this morning. And this is all about, the reason this market is where it is because of early voting data. Democrats didn't hit their early voting targets, especially among younger people and African Americans. They did not come close. And I don't see why people are surprised. You got to remember, a lot of these inflated media university polls are based on the assumption that there's going to be a huge turnout of low propensity voting groups like young people and African Americans. And that did not manifest in North Carolina in early voting data. So then a lot of people are going to be like, well, they'll turn out tomorrow. And I say, okay, they didn't turn out in the primary. They didn't turn out for early voting. Why would they all of a sudden turn out tomorrow? Maybe they're just not interested. And I think people see the writing on the wall in this market in terms of that, is that they just didn't get the voting groups they needed to turn out here. If you look at the early voting data, which you can look at because, let me pull up this awesome map that this person put together for North Carolina early voting. It takes a while to load, but it's good. So if you look at this, In 2000, so Democrats turned out 128% of their 2016 early vote numbers, right? 89% of 2016 registered Democrats voted. Republicans, though, turned out 136% of their early vote turnout from 2016, and 87% of registered Republicans from 2016 have voted. The Democrats had to run up the margins more than that. Only a 7% gap, and everyone knows that the Republicans are going to turn out very heavily tomorrow compared to Democrats, and so the writing is on the wall. You can select demographics here. So if I select 18 to 25 years old, they didn't get the turnout. The Democrats did not get the advantage they needed here, not at all. So that's why this market is looking more and more. I mean, it's not a lock or anything, but just if you leave, I always say take early voting tea leaves with a grain of salt, but they didn't hit their targets, and even the Biden campaign staffers are admitting that to the media. It's not a secret. So it's going to take the only way Biden's going to win this is if like every other market, the independent vote heavily swings towards him, and the Republicans just don't turn out the numbers they need to tomorrow. That's pretty much what this 47 cents stands for. People betting on that. Yeah, I did hear about the guy who put $5 million on Trump. I'm not surprised. That's pretty much the story. There's also a DraftKings market where people who have DraftKings account could bet on the outcome, and I think people are betting on Trump to win in every state except Colorado. Not Trump to win those states, but people who live in those states are thinking Trump's going to win. All right, South Carolina Senate. I'm not going to talk about that one. Pennsylvania. This is the most important state of the election. No surprise. I got in at Biden no at 39, and I could currently sell it for 40, so really no change. It's interesting, though, because this is really a state that Bill Stipend and Tim Murtaugh were highlighting today when they were talking about the voting data. This is what they're talking about, and they feel confident in where they stand here, and I think that's why Trump has risen here in the past 24 hours, because they think they have it. They think that Biden currently has a 750,000 vote lead, and that Trump will turn out about 2.6 million people tomorrow, while Biden will turn out about 1.5 million people, which will put him over the top. And like I pointed out last week, Pennsylvania is a weird state. So if you look at the early voting data and the mail-in voting data, it is very overwhelmingly Democrat, 71 to 19 or something like that. But you got to remember, Democrats went all in on mail-in voting. They told all their voters to vote by mail, and Republicans are more distrustful of mail-in voting, but especially in Pennsylvania, because there are politicians and government figures who have actually been indicted and prosecuted on mail-in voting fraud in Pennsylvania. And so Republicans know that, and that's why they're very distrustful to vote by mail more than other states. And that's why the mail voting rate for Republicans is so low in Pennsylvania. And I think, the Trump campaign came out with the details from the rally they had in Scranton earlier today, and they said that 84% of the people there have not voted yet, and that's right in line with the mail-in voting returns. So if Republicans can turn out 2.6 million people tomorrow, I think that Pennsylvania could resolve. But the thing with Pennsylvania, you got to remember, is that they're going to take forever to count the ballots. They're not going to start counting mail ballots until tomorrow. This state's going to drag. It's not going to be called, at least it's not going to be called tomorrow, but they're going to be able to count the in-person day of election votes faster than the mail votes. And so that's how most of the Trump people are going to be voting tomorrow, because there's also very limited in-person early voting as well in Pennsylvania. So if you're a Trump voter and you didn't vote by mail, you're voting tomorrow. So those votes are going to be able to be counted quickly compared to the mail votes. So there's probably going to be panic selling here, because if things play out like I think they will, and they count the day of election day votes quickly while taking forever to count the mail votes, then it's going to look like Trump's going to have a big lead, especially as they count all those day of votes. And I think there's going to be panic selling. And so if you want to get in on Trump now, I probably would, because I don't think his price is going to get any lower than this right now. Obviously not Trump yes at 46, but more like a Biden no at 40, obviously. I would get a now if you wanted on this market at Biden no, because I think there will be panic selling if my theory is correct. But this one's going to take forever to figure out, and it's going to probably decide the election. All right. Texas vote margin. So I did a Hail Mary. Oh, this is so annoying. I did a Hail Mary in the Texas vote margin market. I basically put Trump by 8 or more because he won it by 9 in 2016. So if you're running off the assumption that he hasn't lost that much Texas support, then I bought it at 19. So at 5-to-1 odds, I thought it was a good value play. Not that I think it has a good chance of happening, but it's a value play. So at least as of right now, my investment is up, but I only have $11 on it. Let's see. Trump winning at 6 a.m. on November 4th. This is a good market to be in because both campaigns have been firing warning shots about this today. So the Trump campaign came out with a press release saying that the red mirage is fake news and all that. And by red mirage, the red mirage is a theory that Axios came up with a couple months ago about how Trump's going to be ahead after election night because all the mail-in votes are going to take forever to count, and those are going to be mostly Democrats, so it's going to look like Trump is going to be ahead, and therefore don't let Trump say he won, And so the Trump campaign actually came out with something today saying, the red mirage isn't going to happen, we're going to win easily, and then they're going to try to use the red mirage to downplay our victory. Because the Biden campaign and some state attorney generals are like saying, Trump's going to be ahead and we're not going to let him say he won, And so there's been kind of a war going on that today. So that's why this market is up 8 cents today. I bought it at 37 yes, and it's now 43 because it's pretty obvious this is probably going to be the case. Especially if what I expect to happen, Trump winning Florida, happens. If they call Florida for Trump, this market's going to shoot. It's going to shoot up because if they call Florida for Trump tomorrow night, it probably means he won Georgia, North Carolina, and Arizona by proxy because all 3 of those states are pretty similar demographically to Florida. And so this market's going to shoot up, and he'll be ahead because Pennsylvania will be that state that takes forever to count. Wisconsin, Michigan, states that usually don't do mail-in voting, Minnesota, those are going to take forever to count the mail-in votes. So I remember I actually did the scenario last week on the stream where I actually clicked on how I think things would be looking at 6 a.m. on election day, and it was a tie. It was a tie, and I was like, okay, if it's a tie, then the market should be 50 cents. It was at 37, so I bought in, and I still feel pretty confident about this one. Nevada. I talked a lot about Nevada last week, and if you follow Robert Barnes, he lives in Las Vegas. He's an election bettor. He knows what he's talking about. He's been going at it with John Ralston on Twitter. So John Ralston is kind of like the election politics expert of the state of Nevada. He is on top of all the early voting data and early voting trends and everything. And Robert Barnes is basically calling him out, saying that he keeps moving the goalposts, John Ralston, because at least how Robert Barnes interprets it is that there's no way that based on the early voting returns that we've seen that Democrats will be happy about it. And yet John Ralston is saying, yeah, they may not be happy, but, they're still in a very good position. And Robert Barnes is like, no, you said if this was the case, then they wouldn't be in a good position. Now you're saying they still are, So Barnes is calling out on its inconsistency. But just like North Carolina, the Democrats didn't hit the targets here that they needed for early voting. And I think in this state, they have no one to blame but themselves because, like I said, I lived in Nevada in the 2012 election, and the major, biggest get-out-the-vote operation in Clark County is the culinary unions busing them to the polls. I saw it with my own eyes. And if all these culinary union workers are out of work right now or running on skeleton crews, they don't have that organizing element in place right now. Combine that with the fact that UNLV is not on campus, University of Nevada, Reno is virtual right now. They don't have the college organizing element. A lot of people who work in the service sector in Las Vegas have just gone home to their home states. So there's a real chance for an upset here. There really is. If Trump can fight Washoe County where Reno is to a draw, he has a really good shot. And that's why I bought in at 24 cents no here. I thought at 4-to-1 odds it was worth a shot based on all those factors I just talked about, and I still feel the same way. And the early voting pattern just further solidify that. All right, Texas 24. That's where I'm at right now. I'm actually the building I'm in right now is in Texas 24, and I still don't see how the Republican is not favored here. I don't. I grew up in this district. I've lived in this district. Went to high school in this district. I don't see. Here's the deal. The district is weird. You have the Fort Worth, northeastern Tarrant County, Fort Worth suburbs that are very conservative, very red. And then then the district bleeds over into Valley Ranch and Carrollton Farmers Branch, which Carrollton Farmers Branch is very Hispanic and Valley Ranch is very Asian. And by Asian, I mean Indian. Indian Americans and Indian immigrants. So like the left side, the west side of the district is very white, very upper middle class. And then it gets poorer and more minority the further east you go. Like I said, I just think the Carrollton Valley Ranch part of the district is just not as big in numbers as the rest of the district, and I would just be very surprised if this flips Democrat. I have seen campaign ads for both candidates on TV lately. The Democratic candidate is running basically like every other Democrat in the country, not saying they're a Democrat, saying they're going to be moderate, independent, and focusing mainly on healthcare and pre-existing conditions. The Republican candidate's ad is really attacking the Democrat for wanting to defund the police, being soft on crime, and wanting to raise your taxes. So, typical campaign ads. But like I said, I know this district. I would just be very shocked if it does flip. All right, going down the line. All right, Georgia. I don't know how to read the Georgia tea leaves. So the landmark poll of Georgia came out today, and the landmark poll, it doesn't have quite the reputation of the Seltzer poll in Iowa, but it is considered the gold standard Georgia poll, and it had Trump by 4. I think that's about right. There's going to be a big turnout in Atlanta, probably a bigger African American turnout here in Georgia, but I just like Texas. I just don't think that's going to do it. I don't think Joe Biden's the right candidate. If it was someone like, it would have to be someone who would generate more enthusiasm than him to get the vote out, to flip this state, is what I'm saying. But I think 62 cents is a good price here. What was weird about the state in 2016 is just how long the networks took to call the state. It was apparent Trump had won it, yet they didn't call it till like after midnight. That was very sketchy to me. It was like almost like, why did they not call it? What were they waiting on? The conspiracy theories out there say that it was because they kind of had like a vote fraud scheme in place that they're waiting to deploy, and it still wasn't enough to put Hillary over the top. But I don't know. That's just speculation. But anyway, this is a very tough market to gauge. It really is. But I bought in at 60 cents. Or just because I was like, that seems about right, 60 cents, and it still does. All right, so Maine 2, the very hard district to pull. But before I go to that, I just want to talk about Florida. Florida's weird. So all the media university polls coming out, most of them have Biden winning, but yet the early vote data is very, very, very very, very promising for Trump and not for Joe Biden. Like, let me pull up that site that had the North Carolina map. It also has a Florida map. So if you do all early votes, you can see the map shaded. But what happened is that in 2016, hang on. Okay, so they're starting to include election day votes in there. So I'm just going to do only early votes. He doesn't have that button anymore. But anyway, so in 2016, Hillary Clinton, or the Democrats, were up plus 96,000 the day of election day, right? And then Trump ended up winning by like 111,000 votes. So Trump campaign got their votes out on election day, and this year they're only up 112,000. So that's 16,000 more. But you got to remember, Democrats put all their eggs in the mail-in voting basket this year, unlike 2016. So that is well under. Like they were saying, like all the Democrat Florida experts were saying that Democrats wanted to have this number at about 250,000 going into election day. There's a guy whose last name is Cate, C-A-T-E, who is saying that, and this is half of that number. They wanted a 250,000 vote advantage going into election day, and they did not get that. And so that's why, if you read the tea leaves, it looks like Democrats have written off Florida. They have. Yet all the media university polls coming out are showing Biden winning. It doesn't jive, is what I'm saying. And really where Trump has run up the margins is here in Miami-Dade County. Democrats only won this county in early voting by 10%. In 2016 early votes, it was plus, Democrats won the county by 15%. So comparing to 2020, that's about a 45,000 net gain for Republicans in Miami-Dade County in early voting. That's huge. Republicans only lost the in-person early vote in Miami-Dade by 0.1%. That's unheard of in Miami-Dade. So really what's going on there is Trump is really doing well with Cubans and Venezuelans. That's what it is. But like I said, they did not hit the number they needed. This was half of what they needed in Florida, and they're even admitting it. They didn't get their vote out in Florida, and it's gonna, they're gonna turn them out tomorrow. But like I said, they convince their voters that voting in person will kill you. That's a tall task to get the vote out tomorrow. And on the flip side, you have a lot more Republicans this year that are saying they're going to vote on election day because they don't trust all the. So, like I said, this right here is why it's looking good for Trump in Florida. He's at 61 cents. I bought and Biden now at 55. It's about the same. Hasn't really changed, but that's why the market is where it is. The reason this market is close is because of media university polls. That's why. But here's the deal. The media university polls got it wrong in 2016. They got it wrong in 2018. They also got it wrong in 2014. So media university polls have not been able to predict Florida 3 straight cycles. So why do you think they're going to get it right this time? So anyway, Maine 2, very tough district to poll, but you just got to think Trump will hold on to that. He won it by a pretty big margin last time. I just don't see him bleeding support. Minnesota. Let's talk about Minnesota. So Rich Barris actually spent the entire weekend polling Minnesota, the same guy who did that Arizona poll I showed you earlier. And he said he found Biden up within the margin of error by like 3 or 4, but he said the problem is he spent all weekend trying to poll the state, and he just could not get a representative sample of the state. He said he kept getting duplicates, and by duplicates he doesn't mean the same person, but basically too many people of the same demographic. And there are certain demographics he just could not reach, and I think that really highlights how difficult it is to poll these days. I've done polling myself. I've done public opinion surveys. There's some people that are very, very, very hard to reach, and other people that are very easy to reach. And it's not just about reaching people. It's about getting them to stay on the phone with you and complete a survey. There are certain groups that will love to talk to you and talk your ear off about what they believe. And then there's some people who might answer the phone, but will like answer a question or two and say, I have to go or hang up or whatever. And that's what he was saying was happening when he was polling Minnesota this weekend. He spent all weekend trying to get a big enough sample and could not do it. And that's why he didn't release the poll. Because he's like, it's not a representative sample. I couldn't get enough working class white men in certain geographic regions. He said he was getting way too many people in those regions, in the rural Minnesota regions that were, not working class men, but like librarians and school teachers, aka the types of people who will talk your ear off about this stuff. So he said what he did find, though, is that the whole Iron Range of Minnesota is red this year, even St. Louis County where Duluth is. But he said, well, Trump has made gains in the Iron Range. Obviously, where Biden is making his gains at is in the Twin Cities suburbs. No surprise. So, but Trump only lost the state by 44,000 votes, I think, in 2016, which is why I thought at 4-to-1 odds it was worth buying in, and nothing has really changed. All right, Montana, just another one of those. Nebraska 2, we'll have to wait and see. It's just one of those districts. It's an urban district. Michigan, I think that's where Trump is ending his campaign tonight in Grand Rapids, just like he did in 2016. Michigan. So if you believe what the Trump campaign is saying about their internals, they have him up here. If you believe what the Trump campaign is saying about Biden's internals, Biden's campaign internals have him down here, which is why you had to bring Barack Obama out this weekend. The Trafalgar Group has had 3 or 4 straight polls here in Michigan with Trump up, if you want to believe Trafalgar. Rich Barris polled Michigan. He had Biden up by 2 and said that the remaining undecideds were Biden friendly. But, you know, he said it's really all about turnout at this point, and so it is what it is. Media University polls, though, have massive Biden leads here by like double digits. 8 points minimum is what I'm seeing. So either Rich Barris and Trafalgar are right, or the Media University polls are right. We'll have to wait and see. But Rich Barris did nail the state in 2016, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for now. But I bought in at 30 cents, so at about 3-to-1, I thought it was a good bet. And like I said, Trump is a good closer. It's where he closed in 2016. He's closing there tonight. Trump won any state he lost in 2016. This is basically Minnesota right here, and nothing has changed from last week. Virginia. This was my... I'll explain why I bought in Virginia. I don't think Trump will win it. I really don't. But I figured buying in at 10-to-1 odds was a good idea for one reason. Because in 2016, Trump was actually up in Virginia most of the night. And then Hillary didn't overtake him until late when they started to get Fairfax County in. If that happens again, especially with mail-in voting this time, you know, and all the in-person votes being counted soon, Trump's going to have a lead, just like 2016, and there's probably going to be some panic selling. You might be able to, you know, sell your investment for a profit. That's why I bought in. Not because I think Trump's going to win, but I think there's a panic selling opportunity. All right, state with the smallest margin of victory. I think I have Ohio no here. Yeah, so I bought Ohio no at 89 cents, just kind of like a for $60. You know, I just think I don't see Ohio being the smallest margin state. I don't. For reasons I talked about last time, I was just, you know, if he won it by 9, I just don't, and the Iowa poll is correct, then I just don't see it shifting. So Wisconsin, another state where the Media University polls are just showing big Biden leads, while Trafalgar and Rich Barris are showing Trump leads. So Rich Barris's Wisconsin poll has Trump up now here. Trafalgar has him up. So who's right? Who is right? Rich Barris and Trafalgar in one camp, Media University polls in the other camp. Like ABC had Biden up by 17, which is just ridiculous. I can't believe they even published that. But Trump looks like he's making a little rally here. But like I said, at 3-to-1 odds, I thought this was a good deal. So I bought in. But if you look at the turnout in Waukesha County, massive for Trump. And that's one place he lagged in 2016 compared to Mitt Romney, because Waukesha County is where like all the more establishment, highbrow Republicans live in Wisconsin that didn't like Trump, were the reason he didn't win the primary in Wisconsin. But I think they're coming home. If you read the tea leaves, they're coming home to Trump this time. So I think Trump is actually speaking in Kenosha right now as I'm talking. So he thinks he has a chance there, which is why he's there right now. But we'll have to wait and see. Florida vote margin. So I just basically bought all the ones 3% and higher as kind of like long shot bets. So I got in here at 12-to-1, 20-to-1, 14-to-1, and 10-to-1. So I just need one of them to hit to profit. That's it. I don't know. I really don't know if Trump can win by 3% or more, but there's a reason my overall investment is up, because the early voting data looks good for him. And then lastly, I want to talk about this market. turnout in presidential election. This might be a market where I might be in trouble in. I'd put no at 160 million or more. But I still don't think there's going to be 160 million voters tomorrow. I don't. But if the Trump campaign is to be believed and they believe the Democrats have already shot their wad, I think this will resolve. Like I said, I just don't see there being more turnout in this election than what turned out for Obama in 2008. I don't. Joe Biden's not the type of candidate who's going to drive turnout to that level, which is why I bought in at this. All right, so moving on. So those are my investments and how I feel about them as of right now. Not much has changed from last week. I still feel pretty good. So going back to the map, has Arizona flipped again? Nope, still red. Pennsylvania's the market to watch. That's the market to watch. That state's going to decide everything. But I want to talk about independence, because a lot of these media university polls are finding these Biden margins because of independence. The thing with independents is everyone assumes that they're middle of the road moderates. They're not. You can be an independent and be partisan. I know a lot of people who left the Republican Party and registered as independents because they thought the Republican Party wasn't conservative enough, for example. You have a lot of Democrats in North Carolina who are legacy Democrats who don't vote Democrat but just never changed their registration. A lot of those in North Carolina and Arkansas and Louisiana, Kentucky and West Virginia. But there are liberal independents, there's conservative independents, there's moderate independents. So if you're polling a state like Florida and the only place you're getting your independents are in Miami and Tampa, they're going to be liberal independents. On the flip side, if you're polling a state like Minnesota and the only independents you're getting are in the Northwest, rural areas, they're going to lean conservative. It is very critical that when you're polling that you get an independent sample that is ideologically diverse and geographically diverse. Otherwise, it's going to be lopsided, and I think that's what a lot of these polls are finding. They're reaching independence, but they're reaching the wrong independence, and that's what Rich Barris is doing in Minnesota this weekend. Is he didn't end up publishing his poll because he could not get the right sample. But a lot of these media university pollsters don't care if they get a representative sample and just collect they hit their quota and then wait on the back end and release it without doing any due diligences. Are these cross samples representative or not? And I think that's the deal with independents in a lot of these polls, especially ones that show lopsided. Because if you look at the crosstabs of all the polls Rich Barris has released, independents are pretty split. There's really no lopsided independents in any state. I mean, that Arizona poll I showed you, Trump was up, like 2 among independents in Arizona, and I think it's the same thing in his Pennsylvania poll. He had a very neck-and-neck race among independents. That's how it's going to be. Be skeptical if you see these polls with lopsided independent crosstabs. Usually the independents are going to fall in line with the state as a whole, the state margin as a whole. So if Trump wins Florida by 3, he's probably going to win independents by 3. That's just how it is. Independents are not that fluid when it comes to diverging from the consensus of how the state voted as a whole. I agree that independents are partisans that are not registered. You're absolutely right. Like I said, I know a lot of people that renounced their Republican registration and re-registered as independents because they feel like the Republican Party was not conservative enough. Do I think Biden can pull any crazy upset like Florida, Georgia, or North Carolina? I wouldn't call any of those upsets. I would say if Biden wins any of those states, it's because the Trump campaign did not get the Trump vote out on election day. If the Trump campaign in the ground game does its job tomorrow and gets the election day voters out, Biden's not going to win any of those states. If he does, like I said, it's just because they couldn't get the vote out. Georgia, like I said, Georgia's might be concerning because, African American turnout is, decent. I wouldn't say it's earth-shattering, but it's decent. And, you know, a lot of people in the Atlanta metro area are very left-leaning, especially the people that might have migrated in from California and New York to work in the film industry. They're very left-leaning. So that's why Georgia might be a tricky state. But so goes Florida, so will go Georgia, North Carolina. If Trump wins Florida, which it looks like he will based on early voting data, he's going to win Georgia, North Carolina. Those states will not vote to the left of Florida. They won't. But like I said, what do I think Biden needs to do to win those states? Like I said, just hope that the Trump voters don't turn out tomorrow. The Biden vote's already in those states. The Biden vote is in. He's not going to get many more votes than he already has banked right now. So the Trump campaign knows that. They know that their targets that they need to reach. That's the danger of early voting and mail-in voting. That's the danger, is that if your campaign banks too many early votes, the other campaign's going to know how many they need to turn out to beat that. They have a target. That's the risk of going all in on early mail-in voting. That happened in the 2018 Senate race in Arizona. The Republicans there made a very big effort for early voting for Martha McSally, the Republican Senate candidate. And they put a lot of their eggs in the early vote basket, and that just gave the Democrat, Chris Sinema's campaign, they knew what they had to beat. They knew they had a target, and they barely beat it, but they got there. And so that's why you see people like Robert Barnes urging people to not vote until Election Day, because he says you're just going to give them a target that they need to turn out. So that's how it's going to work. Yeah, I drove through Georgia on my road trip, and I would be very surprised. Let's put it that way. Yeah, the Stacey Abrams loss did motivate the black vote in Georgia, but that was just one of those years. The Republican candidate was very weak in Georgia, Brian Kemp. Very weak, very uninspiring, very not a candidate a lot of people can be enthused about, while the Democrats were enthusiastic about Stacey Abrams. They threw everything at that race, like tons of out-of-state money, all the built-in advantages and tangibles, and she still lost. And if she couldn't do it, I don't think Biden's going to do it. Does Trump have any chance at winning the popular vote? If you believe Patrick Basham at Democracy Institute, so Patrick Basham runs a polling firm called the Democracy Institute. He's a British guy, but he lives in Washington, D.C., but he does, polling, and he has predicted Brexit twice. He predicted 2016 Trump's win, and he is predicting a slight Trump win in the popular vote this year, but he predicted the same thing in 2016 as well, and he thinks that, California, you can't account for that. But I would think Trump would win the popular vote if not for California. There's just the way they vote there and how they have everything set up, it would be very difficult to overcome just that. But at the same time, let's see what the odds are for popular vote right now. Man. Popular vote. All right, so you can get Trump at 5-1 odds right now. I think that might not be bad. 5-1, not terrible. I don't know. I think this is priced right, but if you feel good at 5-1, I don't think that's just the thing. I just think California is too. The way they vote, like not only do they have mass mail-in voting in California, but the ballot harvesters are out in full force. I encountered a lot of them when I lived there. It's just very tough to overcome that. So I don't think does he have a chance? Yes. Will he? Probably not. Who's the winner, RV? So yeah, how about I'm gonna give my official predictions. So first I'm gonna change states into toss-ups if I think they're toss-ups, or if I just want to talk about them. So I'm turning the states I want to talk about gray. So I'm going to do my official predictions. Whoops. All right. All right, so I have all the obvious states colored in. So factoring all the obvious states, but before I do this, I'm going to just make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, Erie County will decide PA, I agree. Has it, though? Has the get out the vote in Philly ramped up? I've read stories that they're not reaching their targets in Philadelphia. I've heard that the counties surrounding Philadelphia, so your Bucks County or Montgomery County or Delaware County and your Chester County, I've heard those have done pretty well turnout-wise, but I've heard Philadelphia proper is actually lagging. And you got to remember, there's going to be cheating in Philadelphia, and that's not a conspiracy theory, guys. Cheating happens in Philadelphia. Remember in 2012 when there was like 57 districts where Romney didn't get a single vote, or 57 precincts where Romney didn't get a single vote in Philadelphia? I mean, the odds of that happening are it's not. And cheating's going to happen in Philadelphia. You have to overcome it. All right, so these are all the obvious states colored in. So I'm going to start with the most obvious states. So I have Colorado and New Mexico gray, not because I think they're going to go red, but I just want to talk about them. New Mexico is kind of an interesting case. If Trump overperforms tomorrow, I could see New Mexico being a surprise, just because all the oil workers in the southeast part of the state that are very into fracking, that's not going to outnumber the people in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. But if Trump really has made gains with Hispanics, like people are saying, and he's really hitting the 45% number with that demographic, he could surprise New Mexico if he really outperforms. I don't think it's going to happen, though, so I'm going to obviously cover that blue. But like I said, that's a state to watch. If Trump overperforms in Florida, Georgia, and those earlier states in the night and is just kicking ass, then you might want to take a look at buying New Mexico, just because that might show that his support was underestimated. Same with Colorado. So Colorado's a weird state. I'm going to go ahead and color it in blue. It's an all mail-in voting state, which is not good for Trump and is good for Biden. But, you know, a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters here that might not be enthusiastic about Joe Biden. A lot of people out in the western part of the state that are very conservative, and like the Hispanics in the southeast part of the state that are, you know, like New Mexico. If Trump really is overperforming with Hispanics, it could be a surprise. And the early voting data did not really show a big. It was promising for Republicans, and by promising, I'm not saying that the early voting data says that Trump's going to win Colorado, but it was a lot better than people were expecting how those came in. So I have it blue, but I'm just doing that now. So as far as obvious red states, Iowa, like I said, I just don't see Ann Selzer being wrong. Iowa is an 11-point Trump state. Those flips don't happen in an incumbency. An incumbent is not going to lose 11 points. I'm just going to put it that way. I know coronavirus, all that, but those things don't happen even then. Same with Ohio. He's not going to lose Ohio. He won it by 9. He might not win it by 9 this time, but it's not, like I said, it's not going to flip. That's just too big of a margin that Joe Biden has to overcome. All right, New Hampshire, interesting state. We might know about New Hampshire sooner than other states, although it took them forever to call it in 2016 because it was so close. But demographically, this isn't a good Trump state. Too many college-educated whites, not enough rural working-class whites in New Hampshire. Maine 2, I do think Trump will win it. Like I said, he won it by, 9 or 10 in 2016, and those swings just don't happen. Nebraska 2, I'll leave that blank for now. All right, moving on. Virginia, like I said, I don't think Trump's going to win Virginia. I think Biden will win it because of Northern Virginia, where the D.C. suburbs are, but it was a lot closer than people were expecting in 2016. Remember, Trump was up the entire night until the Fairfax County vote came in. Look at this. I have a Beth Van Dyne attack ad. This is Texas 24 right here, this ad. I don't know if you can see it, this banner ad, but it was a Beth Van Dyne, anti-Beth Van Dyne ad. She's a Republican candidate running in Texas 24. where I'm at right now, and yeah, it was all about health, attacking her for pre-existing conditions, just like I said. Okay, so there we go. All right, so I'm gonna color in Texas. I don't think, if I was in Texas in 2018, and there were Beto signs everywhere, bumper stickers, signs, it was ridiculous, and I actually thought he had a chance. The reason that was so close is because, like I said, Beto had a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of out-of-state support, a lot of fundraising, and then Ted Cruz kind of alienated a lot of people in 2016 based on his opposition to Trump, even after the primary. And so people are soured on Cruz. He's not very likable. So that was kind of the perfect storm for Democrats, a midterm year. And they still, Beto still lost by 3. I think that's the best case scenario for Joe Biden, that he loses by 3 in Texas. So I'm just not seeing it as a blue state, not this year. All right, moving on. Georgia, I think even the Biden campaign is privately admitting at this point they don't see Georgia happening. It would take something else to make Georgia happen. And because of that, Florida, just the early voting data is way too good for Republicans for them to blow it. They don't have that much ground to make up in election day voting, and I think they're going to get there. So if Trump wins Florida, here's the deal. Arizona is pretty much the Florida of the West. Very similar demographics. A large Hispanic population, a lot of retirees, a lot older population, good weather, all that. Very similar demographically. I think Florida and Arizona will vote very similar to each other, and they're polling very similar to each other, even the Media University polls. So I think if Florida goes red, so will Arizona. And North Carolina too. Like, I just don't see Florida being to the right of North Carolina. So there we go. Trump's at 259. So basically he needs, whoops, the state should be gray. So basically Trump needs to win 2 of the remaining 5. And Nevada. I've talked about Nevada a lot, and I'm going to color it in blue, but the lightest blue possible. Like I said, all the built-in advantages that Democrats have in Nevada, they have killed with their coronavirus restrictions. Their biggest get-out-the-vote operation, turning out the culinary union casino workers, can't do that this year when none of them or when hardly any of them are working because of the shutdowns. A lot of service casino employees just ended up going home out of Nevada. The college campuses aren't there. Like, UNLV is a commuter school, but I don't think people really understand just how big of a deal colleges are to get out that 18 to 21 vote. They pretty much have to be led hand to mouth to the polls. They're not going to do it on their own. And we're seeing that. The youth vote is not turning out. They're not turning out. They are in some states. Like, I think in Texas they might actually be up a little bit, but like in swing states they're not. But like I said, I think I would have Nevada red if they didn't have the universal mail-in voting system they legislated in the summer. If they didn't do that, I would have it red, but there's just too many ballots out there. It's too much of a Wild West right now for Nevada to go red, in my opinion, with all those mail-in ballots just out and about. So for that reason, I have it blue, but don't be surprised. Like I said, the early voting numbers are very good for Republicans here, but they're just going to have to overcome that massive hurdle of the mail-in vote shenanigans. All right, Minnesota. I'm going to color this one in. I really want to put this one red just because Trump came very close in 2016, and he's doing a lot better in the iron range, but Rich Barris said in his incomplete poll he had Biden up. It's going to be very close. But just for the sake of this prediction, I'm going to put it in blue, but don't be surprised if it goes red. If Trump overperforms, like if the polls are wrong and he's overperforming his polling, Minnesota very well could tip red. But I'll believe it when I see it. I think it's going to be very close, but I would be more confident if at least one poll had him up there. Like Trafalgar has him down, Rich Barris has him down, so no one has him up there. So even the non-Media University polls. So I'll have it blue for now. All right, moving on. Wisconsin. Wisconsin's going to be a very interesting state. It is. The early vote data looks very good for Republicans. Voter registration, the voter files actually have it at R+8 state right now, meaning there's 8% more registered Republicans in the state than Democrats, and that never happens. Rich Barris has Trump up in Wisconsin. Trafalgar Group has him up in Wisconsin. And Rich Barris said this. He said he has his poll as a R+2, meaning 2% more Republicans than Democrats in his Wisconsin poll. But he said if it's closer to what the voter file says, R+8, so he said if they meet in the middle, R+5, Trump's going to win. And if you look at the early voting data, let me show you this map from like L2 Analytics. I don't know if they have it. But I was like, if that's what they have for Wisconsin, then Trump's going to win it. And same with Minnesota. The Minnesota one, gosh. Let me see if I can find it. Because I really want to show you this. Man. But while I'm pulling this up, Rich Barris had Trump up in Kenosha in his Wisconsin poll, which is where the Jacob Blake stuff happened. I cannot find the L2 Analytics stuff. But anyway, just search for it on Twitter and you'll find the maps. But the Minnesota and Wisconsin maps were very promising, at least for Trump, just based on the demographics and the party registration and everything. So just based on how Trafalgar and Barris has it and based on the partisan makeup of Wisconsin, I think Trump's going to hold it. I do. So that puts him at 269. And I think he's going to win Michigan too. Barris has him up in Michigan now. Or no, wait. Barris doesn't have him up in Michigan. Trafalgar does. But the reason Trump is closing there and the reason Biden had to campaign in Detroit with Obama, like if Biden really was up by like the media poll says he is, he would be in Georgia. He would be in North Carolina and Texas, and he wouldn't be in Detroit with Obama. He wouldn't bring out the cavalry unless he was. And if you believe what the internal polls say, the Trump campaign and Biden campaign both have Trump up there by 1 or 2. Barris had Biden +2 there, but he said it really depends on what the undecideds do. So I just think Michigan's going to stay red. And then it really doesn't matter what happens in Pennsylvania. They can bring that to the Supreme Court all they want about the mail-in voting stuff. It won't matter in the end. It won't matter what happens in Nebraska, too. So I'm just going to go ahead and give Nebraska 2 to Biden. And I don't think it'll matter with Pennsylvania. But ultimately, Barris has Trump up in Pennsylvania now. Trafalgar has him up there. The Trump campaign's very confident about their get-out-the-vote operation there tomorrow. So if you take that at face value, there you go. It's pretty much the same result as 2016. That's it right there. The only change being the Nebraska 2nd District. I think this is a reasonable... I just, it makes sense. This is how I see it. That's how I see it playing out. Yeah, I do think Trump's going to win. I do. Just the way the markets are moving, the way by markets I mean betting markets, it's a lot closer than the media is making it out to be. It is. And like I said at the beginning of the stream, the herding effects and everything, you have to realize that there's probably herding going on. And look, predict it, has it at Trump has at 259. All he needs is one state in the Rust Belt really to tip. And the Trump campaign is very confident about Pennsylvania tomorrow. They've already called their shot on Twitter. The Trump campaign went on Twitter. I talked about this at the beginning of the stream because I think it's important. They went on Twitter, called their shot saying they're going to win Pennsylvania, and actually gave the hard numbers. And I said they wouldn't do that unless, A, they believe that the Biden campaign has already shot their wad and already tapped their voting reserves out in Pennsylvania and have nothing left. and therefore aren't worried about that tweet maybe lighting a fire under the Democrats there and giving them a sense of urgency to go vote. And B, they're trying to set up the post-election battleground. Because if Trump wins, it's coming, guys. If Trump wins, it's going to happen. They're going to say he stole it and cheated and all that. And so by releasing these numbers now, by calling their shot, they're basically trying to get ahead of that and saying, well, this is what the numbers we had, and that's what ended up happening if they win. So that's kind of how it works. But yeah, I would be surprised if Biden wins. I really wouldn't. But just based on how I read things, how I gauge things, the information I'm privy to that the average person might not be in tune with, this looks a lot like 2016. It does. It is played out almost identical. Just with the last minute moving, the one thing Rich Barris has really picked up on his polls, and I didn't really follow him in 2016. I just started following him in 2018. But the thing he's picked up on his polls is all the late breakers, the late deciders, they're all breaking for Trump. And that's exactly what happened in 2016. I think, and that's something that might not be picked up by the media university polls, is the late deciders. But that's why he's all of a sudden now finding Trump up in Pennsylvania and up in Wisconsin. Because the late deciders are coming out and picking Trump. Same with Arizona. So that's kind of the state of the race. No, I'm not a Trump plant, guys. I'm not. I am. I'm not going to say who I support, but I will say this. I was a Ron Paul guy in 2008. I was a Ron Paul guy in 2012. My biggest issue with politics is that I was just fed up with career politicians that, only cared about themselves. I was tired of always being presented with crappy options. And in 2016, call them whatever you want to call them, the deep state, the New World Order, whatever you want to call them, I don't care. But the powers that be had it rigged in 2016 to have a Jeb Bush versus Hillary Clinton general election, because it would be a win-win for them either way. If Hillary wins, the powers that be win. If Jeb Bush were to win, the powers that be win, right? That's how 2016 was going to happen. And then Trump came along and kind of threw a wrench in that entire plan. So I think it was long overdue. If nothing else, it was long overdue that someone outside of the political ecosystem became president. I'm just going to put it that way. Like, not even talking about political beliefs or stances on issues or anything else, but just someone outside the political establishment. I don't care about the Lincoln Project. Those guys are a joke, total joke. Yeah, the Lincoln Project is just a bunch of failed John McCain supporters, Mitt Romney supporters, people who want never-ending war in the Middle East. That was honestly my number one issue, and it has been. My number one issue when I vote is the president going to be more likely or less likely to engage us in more never-ending, pointless wars in the Middle East? Like, are they going to drag our military into more pointless overseas conflicts? That's probably my number one issue, because I've known people that have gone over the Middle East and either died or come back without an arm and whatever. For what? For what? Why are we even bothering, right? And I'm just tired of these defense contractors and other people that profit off of never-ending war, right? So that's my number one issue. And that's why I don't like the Lincoln Project, because that's all they consist of is people who want never-ending war in the Middle East. That's their number one issue. There are no Lincoln Project Republican voters, Sam. I talked about this at the beginning of the call, or at the beginning of the stream, but if there were a ton of Republicans out there that were dying to vote against Trump and vote for Biden, they would have shown up in the primaries, but instead Trump broke records for primary votes for an incumbent. Like I said, they made there are two candidates who tried to run against Trump in the Republican primary. One of them was propped up very heavily by the Lincoln Project in New Hampshire, very heavily. And he couldn't even get 10% of the vote in Manchester, New Hampshire, which is like establishment Republican Central. He couldn't even get 10% of the vote there. Total flop. Then you had Joe Walsh, whose entire campaign was to basically take up the Lincoln Project mantle, and he got booed off the stage in Iowa, where there's a ton of right people for the anti-Trump movement. Arizona is ground zero for the Never Trump movement, and the crosstabs in Arizona. Let me pull up that Grand Canyon battleground poll again. I'm going to show you the crosstabs. If there was a significant anti-Trump vote, it would show up in Arizona. If the Lincoln Project was as big as the media wants you to think they are, it would show up in Arizona. The media acts like the Lincoln Project is just millions of people. It's not, and I will show you right. Okay, right here, Republican. Joe Biden's getting 6.6% of the Republican vote in Arizona. Arizona is ground zero for the Lincoln Project type of Republican. The McCains and Flakes have a very big influence there. A lot of suburban women in Arizona, and yet you get 6%. The Lincoln Project is overhyped for a lot of reasons. The media loves the Lincoln Project because it allows them to run with a narrative that even Republicans hate Trump, and so they use that to gaslight other Trump supporters and saying, look at all these Republicans who hate Trump, and then the Lincoln Project, feeds off that. They make money off that. The Lincoln Project exists to sell narratives to the media. They're just a bunch of neocon warmongers who want us to have never-ending war in the Middle East so they can profit off it. That's all the Lincoln Project is. And if they existed, they would show up in Arizona, and they are not. 6.6%. 6.6%. And that's what I have to say about that. So, moving on. Will we find out who run tomorrow? No. So Rush, if you say what you want about Rush Limbaugh, I'm just going to put it out there. My dad worked at WBAP for years, and WBAP is a large talk radio station in Dallas that carries the Rush Limbaugh show. And so when I am home in Texas, which I am now, I listen to that station on the radio because my dad worked there for a year. I'm good friends with all the morning team at WBAP. My dad was, so I know them personally. It's my station. So I was listening to Rush today when I was driving to the gym, and he had a theory that he had a prediction. He said it was a bold prediction, so don't think this is going to happen. But he said he wouldn't be surprised if there's a network that calls the election early for Biden tomorrow before the polls even close. He said that would not surprise him. I don't know about that. I think that's a stretch. I think they would love to do something like that to try to influence things, but I think that's a bridge too far, even for the biased media. They wouldn't call the election until at the very least Alaska. Wait. They won't call the election until at the very least Iowa closes, because I think Iowa closes at like 9 p.m. Eastern time or something late like that. And it would be very irresponsible to call. So I don't see that happening like at 7 p.m. Eastern when Kentucky and Indiana close, or 8 p.m. Eastern when a lot of the eastern states close. I don't see the media doing something like that, calling the election that early. That would be very irresponsible of them. But do I think that ultimately the question you asked was, do I think there's going to be a winner? Will we know tomorrow night? No, we will not. We will not. And that's because Pennsylvania is going to take forever to count. The only way I could see a call happening tomorrow is if just Biden just destroys and wipes it all out to leave no doubt, or if Trump does the same thing, like wins by such a big enough margin that there's just, no doubt. It's going to have to be a blowout, and I don't think this election is going to be a blowout. So that's kind of how I see it. But I do think Trump will be ahead on Wednesday morning. So that's how I see it playing out. Yeah, Obama was in Philadelphia, but here's my thing with Obama doing the campaigning for Biden. First of all, Obama doesn't have the drawing power he used to have. He's not like the rock star he used to be. And second of all, I don't think endorsements like that matter. Like, someone like Obama can shill all he wants for Joe Biden, but ultimately it's up to the candidate to inspire and get the person to come out and be enthusiastic. People are not going to be enthusiastic to vote Joe Biden because of Barack Obama. People are going to be enthusiastic to vote for Joe Biden because they want to vote for Joe Biden. And that's why I think Obama going out and stumping for Biden is kind of overrated. But there is something that happened last week that I think is kind of meaningful, and that is 50 Cent and Lil Wayne coming out and endorsing Trump. Now, I usually don't think celebrity endorsements matter, but I do think this one matters because if you look at it's no secret that Trump is doing a lot better than last time among black men, especially younger black men. And you know, a lot of African Americans are, you know, taught from a very early age that like the Democratic Party is, you know, is for them. You know, Republicans hate them. You know, you're betraying the other African Americans if you vote for Republicans. So there's a stigma attached to voting Republican among African Americans, and I think 50 Cent and Lil Wayne coming out and endorsing Trump kind of like in a way gives them a permission slip, almost, so to speak, to say, go ahead, it's okay, go ahead and vote for Republican. I don't think it's going to like make that much of a difference, but I think that's a dynamic that people aren't thinking about. It's kind of like I said, it's kind of like a permission slip. Yes, you got value for Florida at Trump at minus 150. I think it should be Trump at 75%, so closer to minus 300. Fox News will call it early for Trump. No, Fox News will not call it early for Trump. If you remember 2018, they were the first ones to call the House for the Democrats. They did it at like 7 o'clock Central Time, very early, while California was still voting, before the polls even closed in a lot of districts. And that was just very irresponsible. But Fox News is not conservative, people. They're not a conservative network. Yes, they're a primetime lineup of Tucker, Hannity, Ingram. They are conservative, but the Fox News operation, especially the daytime programming and the morning programming, is at best centrist, but they are run by Paul Ryan, who hates Trump. The Murdoch family hates Trump. Fox News has become a lot more left-leaning over the years. And the person they hired to run their decision desk tomorrow night is a Democrat who voted for Hillary and donated thousands of dollars to Hillary. So this notion that Fox News is going to call it for Trump is ridiculous. They were the first ones to call the House for the Democrats 2 years ago. In fact, if Rush Limbaugh's prediction is correct, and there is a network that calls the race for Biden early tomorrow, it's going to be Fox News. I would put money on that. Like I said, outside of their primetime lineup, they are not conservative. So when will we know? If my map is correct, like if that map I did earlier was correct, you know, like the, what was it? What did I put it? The one that I had Trump basically repeating his 2016 map. If that map's correct, I think we'll have it Wednesday. Like I said, but if it comes down to Pennsylvania, I think it's going to be like Bush Gore in 2000, because there's going to be so much litigation about those mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania. Because as of right now, ballots can arrive 3 days late in Pennsylvania and they'll still count, and they don't need a signature, and they don't need a postmark. So, I mean, there's really no safeguards in place, and that's what's being challenged. So the Supreme Court will probably have to hear it with a full bench, and they'll have to rule on that. But Pennsylvania, it looks like it's going to be ground zero for both campaigns if there's any post-election litigation, and I think that's the main reason why the Trump campaign came out with their Pennsylvania targets today. They're setting the stage for the post-election battlegrounds. There's a lot of litigation over Pennsylvania. They can say, look, this is what we had the numbers at, and this is what happened. You know, so yeah, I think we'll have an idea tomorrow night. There's a difference between the race officially being called for a candidate and having an idea of who's going to win. I think if my intuition is correct, I think it'll be apparent Trump is going to win. It's just a matter of when the networks will accept it and call it, and if the Biden campaign contests or not. And remember, Hillary Clinton told Joe Biden not to concede under any circumstances. They hired all these lawyers for a reason. They're going to Bush Gore this if they have to. Unless Trump wins in an absolute landslide, this thing's going to be litigated. It's going to be litigated. Get ready for Bush Gore, just like 2000. But I think we'll have an idea. I remember in 2000 when it was pretty apparent Bush won, right? Like, I remember going to bed I was in 7th grade, I was 12 years old, and I went to bed, and they actually had called the election for Bush. And then I woke up the next morning, and like Gore didn't concede, and he's contesting, and it drug on and on and on. But everyone knew Bush won. It's just a matter of when like Gore would throw in the towel. I think that's a likely scenario. Like, I think it might be apparent we have a winner, but it's just a matter of it being official. Yeah, I was a big Ron Paul guy. Wow, this chat is moving fast. I'm trying to read everyone's things. Yeah, younger male minorities are trending Republican. That's not even a secret anymore. And everyone's like, well, if Trump gets 15% of the black vote, how could he possibly lose? Because, usually I think Trump got like 8% of the black vote in 2016, so we can double that. Everyone's like, well, if he doubles that, how can he possibly lose? And especially if Trump is improving with Hispanics, how can he possibly lose? Well, the Media University polls are saying it's because those gains are being offset by what they call the white suburban Karens. And I think we're going to see tomorrow if the white suburban Karen theory is correct or not. Because the white suburban Karens, yes, they exist, and yes, I think they are, Biden voters, but how many of them are just saying they're going to vote Biden and will actually vote Trump in the secrecy of the voting booth, and how many of them will actually follow through and vote Biden, right? Because if you look at Rich Barris's polls, let me pull up the Grand Canyon State Battleground poll again, which I have up right now. He actually asked a question, how comfortable are you talking to pollsters? I think it's at the bottom. Okay, do you believe there's a significant... Okay, so this question right here, how comfortable are you talking to pollsters? Sharing your beliefs with pollsters, and do you believe there's a significant number of shy voters who do not want to share their voting for Trump? So let's find suburban, the suburban crosstab. If he has it. I don't know if he has it. Anyway, we can probably gauge something in this. Okay, so very uncomfortable. What's the biggest group? Very uncomfortable sharing their beliefs. Well, women are 4% more uncomfortable than men. Whites, not the most, but I thought he had a suburban crosstab. He does in his Michigan poll. But anyway, like, he asked that question. And, do you believe there's a shy Trump voter? Well, women are 6% more than men here, and 4% more than men in sharing political beliefs. So I think a lot of these white suburban women are most likely to be that shy Trump voter everyone talks about. And so I'll believe it when I see it. If I'm not quite sold on the theory of these white suburban Karens outweighing the gains Trump has made among black voters and Hispanics. We'll have to wait and see. Ballot stuffing, like I said, it's going to happen. Ballot stuffing is going to happen in Nevada. It's going to happen in Philadelphia. It's not going to happen in Broward County this year because Brenda Snipes isn't there anymore. But it happens, guys. It happens. You just have to deal with it. You just have to overcome it. Did I bet Florida and Georgia? Yes, I did bet Florida and Georgia to go to Trump. Yeah, I think the thing with black voters is that it's very generational. Like, you're older, like if you look at crosstabs of black voters, the older the black voter gets, the more likely they are to vote Democrat, and that's just because your older black Democrats, the Democrat Party has pretty much been like woven into the fabric of their life. Like, it's very prominent in their communities and their churches and everything. Like, they go hand in hand. But the younger ones who are less likely to, go to these churches and less likely to do the community organizing and everything, especially the working class, younger black men, are a lot more likely to vote Republican. Because, for a lot of reasons, but it's very generational with them. Yeah. Rasmussen is terrible at state polling. I'm not a big Rasmussen fan. A lot of people say they lean Republican. They might, but they're not very good at state polling, and I just don't think Rasmussen's a good pollster. He doesn't ask questions. The way he words his questions are pretty bad. His methods are outdated. I don't think they're a gold standard of polling. I don't take their polls very seriously at all. Like, everyone makes fun of them because in 2018 they had Republicans +1 in the generic congressional ballot. And the reason they found that isn't because, I think it's because they didn't make the differentiation between Congress and Senate when asking that question. Because if you remember, Republicans actually made gains in the Senate. They flipped 4 seats. So if you don't differentiate when asking the generic vote preference between Congress and Senate, that might explain why he found that Republican +1. But, and that's kind of like, I just don't think Rasmussen's a good pollster. I'm not going to call them a joke. I think joke is reserved more for the media university polls, but Rasmussen's not a good pollster. I don't even look at his polls. The pollsters, there's really one pollster I trust, and that's Rich Barris, because he's very transparent, he's very open, and he has a great track record. He has outperformed Nate Silver the last 3 election cycles, and he got 2016 right. He got a lot of key races in 2018 right. He knows what he's doing. He is very thorough in his methods. Like, he didn't even release his Minnesota poll from the weekend, even though he spent all weekend trying to collect the data, because he couldn't get a good sample. He tried and just couldn't get a good sample. Like, how many media university polls will do that? Refuse to release a poll because it didn't have a good sample. Probably not very many. So that's Rich Barris. All right, thanks for the super chat. Why not bet on Trump to win outright? I could. I mean, honestly, by the time I got to that market, I just didn't have any money left, and I just didn't feel like depositing. But what's he at right now? 44 cents. I think anything under 50 is a good buy for Trump. But you can get Biden now at 37, which is a lot better deal. But I just ran out of money. But I mean, all my state by state votes are pretty much Trump to win votes by proxy. So like, I wouldn't bet on Trump to win in like Wisconsin or Michigan or Minnesota, for example, if I didn't think Trump was going to win overall. All right, so my thing's up to 62 now. It was at 45 at the beginning of this call, so my portfolio continues to grow. That's good. Socialism is a weird topic. The problem with socialism is I think people don't think it all the way through. They don't think it all the way through because everyone thinks that under socialism or communism, everyone will have a nice car and a nice house and live by the beach. And the thing with socialism is that there's just not enough resources to spread all that around. So everyone's just more equally poor, Do I have any pro-Biden bets? I don't think so. Not because, like I said, it's not that my bets are pro-Biden or pro-Trump. It's that when I placed all these bets, it was just based on how I perceived the value of the market. Like, when I got in at Iowa, I got in at 61, right? So I'm going to click on this. I just went down the list and I was like, okay, at the time Biden was 61, I was like, I think it should be 75, so I think there's 14 cents of value there, so I bought in, and now I can sell it at 77. So these are all value bets, and based on my professional experiences, based on what I do for a living, and being able to see, I've done polls, I've done market research, I've done focus groups and all that. I've done it all. based on my knowledge of the political industry, I believe the polls are inflated in favor of Biden right now, so that's why all the value is on Trump. So there's just no value on Biden right now because the polls are inflated in his favor, and because of that, you can't get very good prices for him. It's all about value. That's like that Bare Naked Ladies song, One Week. It's all about value, and that's what you're looking for. So that's why all my bets are pro-Trump, because that's where the value is. This map right here is influenced by Media University polls. Maybe not as much, because this map has Trump at 259, which is probably higher than the Media University 538 forecasts. Yeah, just like I said, if you watch my very first political live stream, like, I didn't even want to do these streams at first because I was worried that people was going to think I was too biased and stuff, because my experiences are going to make it seem like, you know, I'm a big Trump guy. But no, like I said, there's two different types of polls out there. You have your media polls and your internal polls. Internal polls are very expensive. They're very thorough. They cost a lot of money, and they're not going to be public because campaigns pay for them and use them to be accurate so they know how to strategize. And they're not going to give them away because that'll be like giving away their playbook. Media polls, on the other hand, that's the business I have been in the past. Not so much anymore, but it's something I used to do a lot. Media polls exist for one reason, and that's to shape narratives. They're not intended to be accurate or measure or forecast accurate predictions. They're intended to set narratives. So like I've done media polls in the past where the person who pays us the thousands of dollars to do the media poll will say, can you do a poll for us showing that they want the result? They have a predetermined result they want us to give them before we even interview the first person in the poll. So we basically have to conduct the poll to give them what they want, their customers. The people paying for the media poll are paying for a predetermined result. And the reason they're paying us for it, everyone's like, well, why wouldn't they just put out a press release saying they're up? You know, why do they have to pay a pollster to do it? Well, they have to pay a pollster to do it for credibility. If they just say we're up, you know, and everyone's going to be like, according to who? But if they say, according to media polling group, we're up, they're going to be like, oh, okay. They're paying for the right to use the polling firm's name in their press release. That's what they're paying for. They're not paying for a polling outfit to give them an accurate forecast. That's not what they're paying for. So all these Media University polls you're seeing, they're all commissioned to sell narratives to the news networks. They're not intended to be accurate. And I know that, having done them myself. Like I said, I conducted a media poll for a very big underdog in a congressional race. And they came to us and said, hey, can you do a poll for us showing that we're close? Right? And I think this guy ended up losing by like 22 points. But we basically had to fudge first of all, there's a lot of different ways you can manipulate a result. You know, you have different data collection methods, the way you ask questions, the order you ask questions. You can ask leading questions. You can apply certain weights on the back end. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. But basically, we conducted the poll and weighted it and asked questions in a certain manner to basically show that he was down 4. And that way he could go out and say, hey, look, we're right in this, you know, we're only down by 4, you know, just to generate fundraising and enthusiasm and confidence and all that, to raise money. And that's what a lot of this is about. It's about selling narratives. And so that's why you always have to take the Media University polls with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that they're making stuff up, but they know what they're doing. They know there's certain ways to get certain results. And if you live in a bubble, if you are at Emerson College in Boston and doing Media University polls, and you live in Boston surrounded by nothing but Trump haters and Democrats, and you're conducting these polls that show Trump ahead, and you're like, that can't be right because I live in this bubble and everybody I know hates Trump. So there's no way he's ahead in whatever poll I just did. It's very easy to like shift things around and, you know, try to rework the poll to show a more outcome that's more realistic, at least the way you perceive things. And that's the issue. But like I said, I just think we're in line for another big polling miss this year, just like 2018, just like 2016. The biggest myth out there is that the polls were right in 2018. They were not. Florida, they just completely missed on the Senate and governor races in Florida in 2018. They missed on the Ohio governor race. They missed on the Iowa governor race, and they missed on the Missouri Senate race and North Dakota Senate race, and they just missed on all these races. Indiana Senate race, they missed. The only thing they kind of got right was the generic congressional ballot, and that's what they hide behind. They're like, see, we were right in 2018 because we got the generic House ballot right. They were in the ballpark. It wasn't completely accurate, but they were in the ballpark. But that elections are not conducted at a national level, so it's meaningless. It's like total yards in a football game, as if, I mean, usually the person with more yards wins, but not always. So it just doesn't matter. But they're often, I think their state level polling in 2018 was worse than 2016. And yet they want us to believe the media university pollsters for a fourth cycle in a row. They were wrong in 2014 also. They were wrong. North Carolina, not one media university poll had Tom Tillis winning in North Carolina in 2014. Nate Silver had the Kansas Senate race going blue in 2014. That's just off the top of my head how they missed 2014 as well. So 3 straight elections, the media university pollsters and Nate Silver have got it wrong, and yet, okay, 4th time's a charm is what they're trying to tell us. I don't know. Like I said, I've been in this long enough to just know what narratives are, know what reality is. If that makes me seem biased, then so be it. I mean, popular vote lose, electoral win for plus 185 is pretty much in line with just Trump to win outright. Is there a deadline for military ballots to be counted? It depends on the state, but the military people that send those ballots in are very prompt. They probably have them in already, but it just depends on the state. How confident am I that Arizona's going for Trump? I'm pretty confident. Like I said, I had the Grand Canyon State Battleground poll up by the pollster I trust the most out of everybody, Rich Barris. He, unlike the others, he got 2014, 2016, and 2018 right. And he has Trump up in this one by 2.5, 47.1 to, wrong one. That's the wrong one. That's a trade negotiation trust column, my bad. He has Trump 46.9%, Biden 44.4% with 5.6% undecided. But Barris said that the undecideds have been breaking for Trump very heavily over the past few days. So I think Trump is going to win Arizona. I think the what you would call the never Trump Republican vote from 2016, I think they're more likely to vote for him this year. Based from my own anecdotal experiences, like I said, I know a ton of people that are Republicans and conservatives that did not vote for Trump in 2016 because they didn't like him, and they're all voting for him this year. I think we're going to see that in the states we're going to see that the most in will be Texas, Wisconsin, and Arizona. I think that those types of voters, those are the 3 states that they had the highest numbers in. But yeah, I think there's a reason Trump has gone, this market and predict it has flipped to Trump today. The early voting numbers look very good for Republicans in Arizona. The Democrats didn't reach their early voting targets there. And even some of the media university polls are pretty bullish on Trump here. So that's why I'm pretty confident he'll win Arizona. But the state to look for is Florida, because if Trump wins Florida, he's going to win Arizona. Those states are pretty correlated. Yeah, Trump at minus 110 in Arizona is 50-50. I think it should probably be about 60-40. So yeah, there's value there. 500 subs. So it's been almost a year since I did that 500 sub video where I made a $500 bet in Las Vegas that I won. I miss that. I miss driving up to Las Vegas. So when I lived in, when I was still in San Diego, I would, about once a month, I would drive up to Las Vegas on a Saturday for college football. But the thing with driving to Las Vegas from San Diego is that you run into traffic. So there was one night I left on a Friday night. Big mistake. It took me forever to get to Las Vegas from San Diego because of all the traffic. So what I started doing is waking up at like 2:30 in the morning to drive to Las Vegas for college football Saturdays. I missed that a lot. Stupid shutdowns, man. Stupid coronavirus. That was so much fun. But yeah, 500 subs. I'm at what, like 7,000 now? I don't really look at those metrics that much. Like, I don't look at how many views my videos get, or I don't really look at that. I just make videos that I think will be well received, and there we go. Like I said, I didn't want to do these political betting videos, but I went ahead and did it anyway because they draw viewers, and I feel like I have expertise in certain ways about it, having experience in the political polling industry. Being within margin of error is not a miss. Well, when I say there's going to be a polling miss this year, I'm talking about states like Wisconsin, where we're seeing like ABC, Washington Post coming out with the Biden plus 17 ridiculous poll. That's stupid. So Rich Barris has Trump up in Wisconsin, and ABC, Washington Post has Biden up by 17. Both cannot be true at the same time. So one of them is going to miss. And we're seeing that in a lot of states, where two things cannot be simultaneously true at the same time. Like, what is it? Investors Business Daily, they were pretty accurate in 2016 as far as the national poll is concerned, and they had Biden up 3 today. If Biden's up 3, Trump's going to win by a bigger margin in the Electoral College than he did in 2016, if that's true. Biden probably has to win the popular vote by 5% to win, maybe even 6 or 7%. But if it's a +3 national, like IBD says, it's Trump's going to win 300 plus electoral votes. Do I have an 8 to 5? Yeah, I do. I hate working from home. I have a regular job, I still work in public opinion, market research, all that stuff. Not so much politics anymore like I used to, but I still do it. I was a lot more heavy politics in past positions that I have, but I'm pretty high up on the organization chart for a major broadcast company. I'm a manager of a team, and that's what I hate about work from home. I hate not being able to be hands-on with my team. I'm not a micromanager at all. I'm the opposite, but on my team, I have employees of various abilities, and some people I'm fine working remote and I don't have to check in on them or worry about them. They're going to get their stuff done. But there's other people who, that I hired, and they're not as developed, and they need a lot more coaching and training and everything. And it's very hard to do remotely. I hate it. And I have let my HR and company know how much I hate work from home. It's not me. It is not me at all. But yeah, I do have an 8 to 5. Florida minus 160. I mean, like I said, I think Florida should probably be about 70-75% for Trump right now. Like I said, the only way Biden's going to win Florida is if Trump voters just don't turn out tomorrow. And I think the Trump campaign's ground game is too strong. You got to remember, Trump had no ground game in 2016. None. The Republicans abandoned him after Billy Bush. Remember Billy Bush? Republicans nationwide could not get to a camera fast enough to denounce Trump and say they're not going to vote him and how we need to vote our conscience and pulling their endorsements and everything. The RNC and Republicans abandoned Trump in 2016. He had no ground game because he was counting on the RNC being his ground game. So how did he win? Raw enthusiasm. This year, not only does he still have the enthusiasm, he has a very, very robust ground game this time around. They're very confident they're going to get the voters turned out tomorrow that they need. I looked at the weather. It's going to be good pretty much everywhere. So that's Biden's only shot in Florida. They did not reach their early vote targets in Florida. Biden's only shot is that they hope and pray that the Trump voters don't turn out tomorrow, or that the Trump team already cannibalized their votes in early voting. But if you believe the media university polls, most Trump voters in swing states are going to vote on election day. So they basically have to hope the polls are right and wrong at the same time, the Biden team. Like they have to hope the polls are right in terms of voting intentions. Are you going to vote by mail, vote by early vote, or vote in person on election day? They have to hope that part is wrong, and they have to hope the actual top line is right. Because the Media University poll says that most people, that Democrats have a massive mail-in vote margin, but hardly any Democrats are going to vote on election day. So, do I have an opinion? If I'm okay with sharing, what does that mean? College basketball. Yeah, it's going to be different. So, my typical college basketball season, I usually sit out the first 3 weeks just to collect data and let every team get some games under their belt, and then I usually start betting during the. I didn't do this last year, but traditionally my first college basketball bet every year is the first game of the Maui Invitational. That's like my tradition. I didn't do it last year though, but I usually wait until those Thanksgiving week tournaments start to do college basketball, but that's not going to happen this year. I don't think the season's starting until November 25th. So, and that sucks because my best month every year in college basketball is December. Like I always have a very good December. So it's like, okay, what do I do? I might just, I might wait until like after Christmas because, I could just wait 3 weeks like I normally do after November 25th, but that's going to be like during finals weeks and everything for the teams, and they're not going to play that week anyway. And then you don't have a lot of teams play around Christmas. So sometimes they'll play, like, what does the calendar look like? There's probably going to be a good amount of games on December 19th. I might start on December 19th, but the model's going to be the same. I'm not going to change that, but just like with college football, even though I did have a good week this past weekend, there's going to be a lot of factors at play that are just going to make it a little bit harder this year to be consistent compared to last year's, especially like if a lot of these arenas don't have full capacity, and home advantage is very important in college basketball. And if it's anything like college football, where it's like home advantage has been cut in half, that's going to be tough to overcome in my model. It is. Who do I want for president? I mean, I haven't said outright, but I think you can read between the lines. Like I said, in 2008 and 2012, I didn't support either Obama or the Republican candidate. And that was probably going to be the same thing in 2016 because I was just tired of being presented with career establishment politicians that only cared about, Middle Eastern wars and, crony capitalism and all that. So read between the lines. Jack Fletcher, I have, if you looked at my map that I did earlier, did I close it or do I still have it? Here's my map. It's the Trump 2016 map. That's what it is. But if I do think that, but as far as surprises go, I said all the intangibles are in Trump's favor in Nevada. I think if there was no universal mail-in voting in Nevada, Trump would win. But I think that's just too big of a hurdle to overcome, even though he has a lot of other things going his way in Nevada. Minnesota, I really wanted to color it red, but I didn't do it because even the more Trump-friendly pollsters are showing Biden with the lead here, but Trump barely lost here in 2016, and he is flipping the iron range this year. So the question is Trump's gains in the northern part of the state going to offset the gains that Biden will make in the Minneapolis suburbs? We'll have to wait and see. It'll be interesting, though. I think Minnesota is probably the state I'm most interested in tomorrow. And then New Mexico, I think New Mexico is a good long shot bet. If Trump vastly overperforms, if Florida comes in and all these eastern state comes in and Trump just is doing a lot better than everyone was expecting, I think New Mexico could be one of those states that can get swept up in that. But it's a long shot. But out of all the long shots on the board, that would be the one I would take, New Mexico. So like I said, this is the 2016 map, and I don't see it deviating too much. Michigan, I have it red, and the reason I have it red is because the Trump campaign is very confident about it. There's a reason they're closing in Grand Rapids tonight, and if you believe that both campaigns have let it be known that their internals show Trump ahead by 1 in Michigan. The Trafalgar Group has put like 4 polls out in a row showing Trump up in Michigan. And even though Rich Barris didn't have him ahead, it was still very close. It was Biden +2. And he is saying all the late deciders are breaking heavily for Trump is what he's been saying. So, and there's a reason Biden had to drag Obama out to Detroit and Michigan this weekend. It's going to be very close. Let me pull up this site that I like. So this is a very good site. Just type in 2016 election results by precinct. So you can look at like precinct level results from various states. So I'm going to zoom in on Michigan here. All right, so when we're looking at Michigan from a county level, this entire Upper Peninsula outside of Marquette is going to be red, very red. I drove through it on my road trip. If you watch my video, I said on my video, I was like, geez, it was like a conga line of Trump signs. I drove this entire way along Lake Michigan all the way to Mackinac Island. But there's not a lot of votes up there. So really, it's all going to come down to, can Trump run up margins in the Upper Peninsula and pretty much the northern part of the state, up here in the thumb, you know? Can he run up the margin there? Can he win back here's the deal. Trump did win Kent County. There's a lot of people in the western part of Michigan that are what I call the decent Republicans, you know, people who might not have voted for Trump in 2016 because of the decency argument. If he can get those voters to come home, he'll be in good shape. And you got to remember, Kalamazoo, Lansing, Ann Arbor, none of those schools are in session right now. And I've heard people say that Michigan State's like a ghost town right now. They're not going to be able to organize on college campuses in Michigan this year. And there's a lot of them. Mount Pleasant, that's where central Michigan is. So, you know, but here's the deal. We all know Wayne County is going to do what it's going to do, right? But again, the Biden campaign is worried about minority turnout, especially African Americans. They didn't turn out for Hillary in 2016, and there's a reason he had to drag Obama to Detroit this weekend. They're worried about minority turnout. So Biden will have to get people to come out in Wayne County. And so that brings us to these Monroe County. Trump won it by 22 in 2016. He's probably going to have to hold that. And then Macomb County. He won it by 12. He needs to expand that probably to 55% plus this time, because here's what the Trump campaign's worried about. Oakland County. Hillary won it by 8 in 2016, but this is where Team Biden thinks they're going to make the gains. This is where a lot of the suburban women that we always hear about are living, and they're going to the Biden campaign's going to try to run up the margin here. And there's a reason why Trump has spent a lot of time there over the past few days, because they need to stop the bleeding here. If Biden can run up margins here, it's really not going to matter if he can expand his margins in the northern part of the state, because there's a lot of votes here. But where am I going with this? So here's what I say about Michigan. The reason Hillary lost in 2016 is because they just didn't turn out for her. They just did not get out the vote. And the Democrats know that this time around. They know that they got caught flat-footed in 2016 in getting out the vote. It's not so much that Trump won a lot of votes. It's more, Michigan was probably the only state that I would say Trump won, not because he just out-campaigned and just got more votes. It was a state that Hillary lost. Trump didn't win it, Hillary lost it, and they know that. So they're going to go all in on Oakland County, all in. But like I said, this is the narrative that's going to play out not just in Michigan, but nationwide. Can Trump run up his margins in these red rural areas, like this Ogama County where he won 65-29? Can he run up the margins in those red rural white working class areas to offset the expected gains that Biden's going to make in places like Oakland County. That's what the election's ultimately going to come down to. So that's how I see Michigan. Why is the West Coast blue? Having lived in California, having lived in Seattle, that's a great question. Seattle is very blue. Let me show you the precinct I lived in 2016 in Seattle. I'm going to show you this. So I'm zooming in on Seattle here. I mean, look at how blue it is, just across the board. Even the suburbs, like, it doesn't start getting red until you get to like Kent and Auburn and like Puyallup. And even then, it's just very light red. But the precinct I lived in, that I voted in 2016, was in Belltown on Battery Street, right here. So Donald Trump got less votes in this precinct than Gary Johnson. Only 40 people voted for Trump out of about 500. And, you know, I think it's just a cultural thing. It's just cultural. As in Rome, do as the Romans do. I think it's just as in Seattle, do as the Seattleans do. But like all the people I worked with, they didn't really seem like, you know, far left radicals. They didn't. They seemed like normal people. I worked right here in Lower Queen Anne, which was 83% for Clinton. But they didn't come across as like ultra, you know, left-wing progressive types. I think it's just a cultural thing, you know. Here's the deal. Not a lot of religious people in Seattle, and political preference is very correlated with religion, especially Christianity. You know, Seattle, not a lot of religious people there. That's another reason. You know, I wish I had an answer for that question, but I don't. It's just, they just do. They just vote Democrat. I wish I could tell you. It was funny because in 2016, when I was living in Seattle, I'm more confident right now in a Trump win than I was in 2016. But in 2016, I thought Trump was ultimately going to lose, but I thought it was going to be a lot closer than people are saying. You know, I thought he was going to lose by just a hair, and that way at least he could go back to the never Trump Republican types who were looking to capitalize on his loss and say, look, I did a lot better than you guys thought I was going to do. You know, I did a lot better than what Mitt Romney and McCain did. That's how I thought it was going to play out. So I remember I was at work right here in Lower Queen Anne that night on election night 4 years ago. And I remember I was reading all the exit polls and Twitter and everything. And I just remember Frank Luntz, everyone, if you pay attention, you know what I'm about to say. But Frank Luntz put out a tweet saying, I've seen enough, you know, Hillary Clinton's going to be the next president of the United States, you know. And at the time I thought Frank Luntz, you know, he's probably true. So I remember I just like, okay, well, no point in me staying up and watching the results, you know. And the thing is, I went to the gym at like 4:30 in the morning when I lived in Seattle, so I went to bed early anyway. So I walked home to my apartment in Belltown, and I went to bed. And then my phone rang and woke me up, and it was my dad. And he's like, "Are you watching this?" And I said, "No." I thought it was a done deal that Hillary had won. He was like, "I think he's going to be able to pull it off." And I was like, "What?" And so I turned on the TV, and then the next thing I know, I was up till 3 in the morning watching it. But that was kind of my election day story in 2016. But they just vote Democrat because they do. It's a cultural thing more than anything. It's not so much ideology as it is culture. Let me tell you about I have a lot of family. I don't know if I want to call it my family, you know. But let me put it this way. My mom is from this part of the country right here, the Northeast. She grew up right here in Fairfield County, Connecticut, which was a Hillary plus 20 county. My mom grew up in a very old money type of neighborhood, a lot of like old money, you know, rich, elitist, limousine liberal types. And, you know, so I'm pretty much in tune with how people who live in this part of the country think. But, you know, I talk to people who live there and, you know, in New York and Connecticut, and they seem like they're, you know, pretty, at worst, middle of the road, but they seem, you know, I know people who hate taxes and, you know, want more stricter immigration controls and, you know, all that type of stuff, and yet they're reliable Democratic voters. And I asked them why, and they're like, well, I'm not a Southern redneck, you know, I'm not an uneducated, you know, they vote Democrat because it's their culture. It's just a cultural thing. And you could say the same thing about Republicans in the South, you know, they vote Republican out of culture. It's a cultural thing more than anything. And that's why I think weighting socioeconomic factors and getting accurate cross samples of education and region is so important when you're polling, because that way you're going to be able to capture sentiments on a broader scale. Yeah, Peter Hoffman, going back to college basketball, I would yeah, you want to build up, you can afford to build up a sample in college basketball. You can wait a couple weeks. Trust me, I do hypothetical betting every year with my college basketball model in those first 2 weeks, and it's never done well. Let it play out. Nevada's blue because of the unions, the culinary unions, and Harry Reid, his machine ran that state. Like I said, the unions, a lot of Hispanics have migrated, and a lot of Californians migrating to California have contributed to that. But like I said, that's the advantage that Trump has this time around, is that the culinary unions are when you're all shut down and not working, it's hard to organize them like they have in the past. And also, shutdowns are not popular in Nevada, and Biden has pretty much become the candidate of coronavirus lockdowns. You know, and a unionized casino worker in Nevada voting for Biden will pretty much be voting to stay shut down and not being able to work. But like I said, the mail-in voting situation is a wild west in Nevada, and I just don't see it playing out favorably for Trump. Yeah, Jackson Cook, you're right. Like I said, I lived in Seattle, which, you know, if you watched what happened over the summer, it's a very, at least what you saw in the news, very radical place. But the people I knew there were not. But again, I worked in a professional environment with professional workers, and I think a lot of those people you see on the TV that are rioting and establishing the CHOP or Chaz zone or whatever it was in Capitol Hill, which I wasn't surprised at all, by the way. That's like, I drove through Capitol Hill once when I lived there, and I was like, geez. But those aren't the type of people I'm going to be working with in a professional setting. So it's not that they don't exist. It's just that I didn't encounter them in my line of work. So Harry Reid was very corrupt, Mike. That's why he was in the Nevada Senate for ages. He had a very powerful political machine in Nevada. Very powerful. Nevada used to be like the ultimate libertarian live and let live state, but as the unions have become stronger there, as more Hispanics and Californians have migrated there, it's definitely shifted. Do I think social media censorship could change minds? Absolutely. It's a big issue. Social media censorship is a big issue, and it's something I'm very open about on my own Twitter account. I got banned from Twitter last weekend. I got banned from Reddit permanently. Social media censorship is a winning issue if the right can capitalize on it. I think the reason I'm not saying they're not trying to capitalize on it, but the hard part about capitalizing on social media censorship is the fact that how are you going to get the message out? Because a lot of avenues to get the message out are going to censor it. You know, the mainstream media is not going to let you get the message out on it. They're not going to let you get the message out on social media, but I think it's one of those things in communist Poland. I'm going to use this analogy. Communist Poland. So, you know, Poland used to be under communist rule, and then one day they decided to take up arms and revolt. And they all went outside their houses and gathered together, and they're like, wow. It was on this day we realized there's more of us than there are of them, and they overthrew the communist government in Poland. I think that's what it's like with social media censorship. I think there's more people who are opposed to it than are for it. It's just that the people that are for it, their voices are amplified and a lot louder, and they're the ones who make the decisions and everything. So that's the thing. But there's going to be a day of reckoning for the censorship. It's going to happen. And I think more and more people are becoming wise to it. especially those in the middle. You're gonna have your Democrats and your left wingers. They're never gonna budge on stuff like that because they're gonna justify it. I know like a Democrat who is all for. He said I got banned from Twitter, because Twitter's a private company. They can do what they want. That was his reasoning for it. I'm like, yeah, but that's the argument that like they use for the bakers in Colorado that refuse to bake the cake for the gay wedding, for example. I mean, I ultimately in like a true libertarian society, yeah, you're probably right, but yeah, I think one day this is all going to backfire on the censors. It will. They're going to censor the wrong person or the wrong story, and it's going to backfire. Is there people covering every piece of land in America? Absolutely not. I drove through the entire country for 2 weeks, and there are some stretches that I drove through that were just totally remote, especially in Utah. I drove through. Let me pull up that map. Like when I drove through Utah, I drove up through St. George up here, and then like along here, like this county right here, Emery County. There were about 3,700 votes in 2016, and I just remember that was like the most remote county. That was probably the most remote part of my drive. It was ridiculous. And also I drove through Minnesota, right outside of North Dakota, so like this county right here, Wilkin County, there was a total of about 3,000 votes there in 2016. I remember I was driving down a road and there was no cars for miles. And then I drove down this way. Yeah, so no, there's not a person in every piece of land, but there's definitely jurisdictions. But yeah, looking at this map, yeah, I feel bad for Chinese people and Cuban people and other people that are fleeing like places of censorship coming here and just seeing the same thing play out. I feel it's bad. Like I said, I got banned from Reddit permanently. I got banned from Twitter for a while. And it's like, why? I didn't even do anything. It's going to backfire one day. But yeah, I'm going to talk about Pennsylvania real quick, just because it's like the state, in my opinion, that's going to decide everything, probably, maybe. So really, you have two major urban centers, Philadelphia and Allegheny County. So Philadelphia, you have the suburban counties that surround it. You have Chester, Delaware, Bucks, and Montgomery. So Mitt Romney actually won Chester County in 2012. Mitt Romney won Chester County, and then Hillary Clinton won it by 9. So what Donald Trump needs to do here is he needs to improve on this number right here, I think. Remember, a lot of people that voted for Romney didn't vote for Trump because of the decency argument, and at least from what I'm seeing, those people are coming home. So I think Trump can close this margin. He's going to get slaughtered in Philadelphia. He's going to get slaughtered in Delaware. He's going to get slaughtered in Montgomery. That's just going to happen. It just is what it is. He just needs to make sure these margins don't grow. Bucks is a big county. This was a tie. This was 48-48 in 2016. He needs to fight it to a draw again. And then we have Lackawanna County. That's Scranton up here. Hillary won it by 4 in 2016, but I think this one's going to flip. I do. This is where Joe Biden is saying he's from, even though he only lived there for 2 years. But Lackawanna, if Lackawanna flips, that's a very good sign. And Monroe County was also Hillary County, barely, but this one's going to flip too. And then he needs to run up the score up here in Luzerne County. He won it by 19 4 years ago. He needs to breach 60 plus this time. And then the T, we have the T. The T is up here and then down here through State College. He only lost Center County, which is where Penn State is, by 2 points. And remember, with all these colleges not in, they're not going to be able to organize at Penn State this year. So I think he can flip Center County. He needs to run up the margins in the T. Like this county right here where he won 79-17, he needs to do that again. He can't get blown out in Allegheny. He lost it by 17 in 2016, and I think, if he can do like 55-40, that'll be very good. But this is all fracking country right here. And fracking country. and also down here. So he needs to run up the margins in fracking country. And then Erie. He won Erie by 2, and he needs to maintain that margin. But that's how I see Pennsylvania. Very interesting state. It's probably going to be the tipping point. But like every other state, it's going to come down to, is Biden's margins in Delaware, Chester, Bucks, Montgomery, and Philadelphia, like, he still needs to turn out the black vote in Philadelphia, and what they're saying is that he's not right now. Whatever gains Biden makes in the suburbs of Philadelphia, Trump needs to outweigh by running up the score in the rural areas. Do you think it's worth betting an electoral margin of victory or just going for Biden? No. Well, let's look at it. That's why I'm here. Well, Biden, no, you can get for what, 37 cents? 38 cents. That's a pretty good deal. I would take it. But if you're looking at margin of victory, though, you're really looking for long shots. So are you looking for the Electoral College margin of victory, which is the market I'm in? I pretty much have 4 stakes in Republicans by 10 and 149. But you're looking for long. And I also have a no right here. Democrats 100 to 149. And then, or popular vote margin of victory. I have a no here. The question is, do you want to be safe or do you want to take a shot, right? If you want to be safe, you look at some of the margins that you don't see happening and just go in with that. But if you want to take a shot, I don't know if the popular vote market would be that, but maybe something like, if Trump repeats his map from that I have predicted, this would be your market right here, a 5-to-1 shot at 18 cents, 60 to 99, right? That's kind of your shot. Yeah, the size of Trump rallies. A lot of people have pointed out over the past few days that Romney rally that he had in, like, I don't remember where it was in 2016. It was either Pennsylvania or Ohio the night before the election, on that Monday night before the election in 2012. And a ton of people showed up for Romney. But that's the thing. He only did that once. Trump does it every time he has a rally. He pulls a crowd like that. You know, like I said, it's all about enthusiasm. And if Biden wins, it'll be the first time, and who knows, that the candidate with less enthusiasm won. You know, like there's going to be a lot of like first time evers that will occur if Biden wins. Like the first time ever that the party that won new voter registrations lost. For example, like more Republicans have registered than Democrats nationwide, especially in swing states. Like that usually predicts the winner. That'll be a trend that will have to buck, for example. So like other things you talk like Halloween mask sales, you might laugh at me for that, but that always picks the winner. Those cookie pulls that you've been seeing, you know, those usually are pretty accurate. So yeah, the Amish vote is something you can't account for in Pennsylvania. You can't pull it, I can tell you that. But the Amish, not only are they voting, they're going to vote for Trump, but they're letting their wives vote too. They usually don't let their wives vote, but they're doing that this year. That's how seriously they're taking it, and that can be another 50,000 votes for Trump. You know, he got them in 2016 too, but maybe not the wives. But yeah, the Amish vote might play a factor. I agree with you, Jackson, about COVID. That this election was going to be a landslide before COVID. Trump was going to win in a rout. COVID is the only reason this is a race. And for your conspiracy theorists out there, that's why people think it was, if not intentional, then at the very least, the Democrats look to capitalize on it to win this election. There's probably no doubt about that at all. But yeah, this is going to be a total blowout. Like I think that's why they picked Joe Biden as their nominee, because they thought they were going to lose, and they just wanted to put someone out there that wouldn't be damaged by losing. But yeah, something happened, because remember all the Democrat primary challengers to Biden dropped out one by one, all on the same day and endorsed Biden. Something happened. They didn't all. That was something happened. I don't know what it was, but The implied probability Trump wins California, 0%. Yeah, at zero, like negative 100%. Like, what, less than zero? What are the odds Trump wins Florida right now? I would say 75%. Yeah, Trump's going to gain black vote in Philly. That's, even the Media University polls are showing that. It's not a question of if. Bet Biden to win 270 to 299. Yeah. Why did I get banned on Reddit? Because I posted a link to the. They were banning people on site for posting any link to the Gateway Pundit, even if it, So I like found a Gateway Pundit article about, like, I don't know, something that had nothing to do with politics, and posted it, and I just want to see if they would ban, and they banned me right away. Like, ban me. Why is the greatest variable enthusiasm? Because ultimately you have to go out and vote. Like, voting takes some effort, and I think that's why Democrats went all in on mail-in voting, because they knew they weren't going to win the enthusiasm battle. So they figured mail-in voting on a mass scale would be able to close that gap, because with the mail-in vote, you get it sent to you. You don't have to leave your house. You can just fill it out and drop it off. Minimal effort, but ultimately you still have to do something. And people who are pro-Biden are like, well, a lot of people are going to turn out for Biden tomorrow on election day. And I'm like, how are they willing to stand in line? Like, what if they get to the polling site at 4 o'clock and see a long line and like, screw this? You got to really want to vote for a candidate to, stand in line on election day. And that's why the Trump campaign is confident right now, because they know the votes Democrats have banked in early voting and mail voting, and they know that they're going to need Democrats to show up tomorrow, and they don't think it's going to happen. Yeah. Like, people are like, oh, well, the polls had Biden up even before COVID. Like I said, media polls, guys. Learn the difference between media polls and reality. This was going to be, I think Trump was at like 65 cents on Predicted, like at his peak, and even that probably wasn't high enough before COVID. You got to remember, they threw everything at Trump in his first term. Russia, impeachment, Stormy Daniels, like, think of all the things they threw at him in his first term. And, he had overcome impeachment. The economy was doing very well. Nothing was going to stop him. And then COVID is very conveniently happens to make it a race. Yeah, the thing with the Democrat primary, guys, is that it's not a democratic process. Before Trump, primaries were rigged. Like, the party chose their candidate and just had the primaries to give a facade and illusion of a democratic process to choose the nominee. But the primaries are always rigged to ensure that their handpicked choice wins. The Republicans handpicked Romney in 2012 and rigged the primary schedule and process and everything to make sure he won it. They were going to do the same thing with Jeb Bush in 2016, but Trump was just able to beat it. The primary processes are not democratic. These guys are all handpicked. So whatever reason, the party apparatus, the Democrat Party apparatus, decided to make Biden their guy for whatever reason, and everyone fell in line after that. You could speculate on a lot of reasons why they made Biden the guy, but that's just what ended up happening. But the thing is, nobody, like, Bernie still didn't get the grassroots support this year he had in 2016. He didn't get the same level of turnout, even in the early primaries when it was still a race. So he just didn't have the magic this time around. And that's important, because these same people are the same ones not turning out for Biden right now. And if they aren't going to turn out for Bernie, why are they going to turn out for Biden? That's what I keep saying. If you didn't participate in the primaries and you didn't participate in early voting, why would you all of a sudden participate in the vote tomorrow, right? What's a good site to follow real-time voting for state tomorrow? I'm glad you brought that up. I'm not going to do any. I might do a pop-in stream tomorrow, maybe, just to talk about what's going on, maybe. But I am not even going to watch. Don't watch the mainstream media networks tomorrow. Don't watch cable news. Avoid all that. They're nothing but narrative engineers. I guarantee you they're going to have exit polls that are completely wrong. I mean, talk about a year to not do exit polls. I mean, with all the mail-in voting and stuff, how are you going to have accurate exit polls, right? But exit polls are wrong all the time. They were wrong in 2016. They were wrong in 2004. The exit polls exist to narrative engineer. And that's all the networks are going to be tomorrow is narrative engineering, narrative engineering, narrative engineering. Don't watch them. I'm going to be watching Rich Barris, the pollster I trust the most, the data guy I trust the most. He's going to be on a stream, I think on Decision Desk HQ, and he's all I'm going to watch. I'm going to have him on and him only. Ignore the narrative engineering from the networks. Like Rush Limbaugh said, he thinks that a network's going to call it early for Biden tomorrow. I don't think that will happen, but I think they're going to do everything they can to make it appear that way, to like discourage voters, but that are still out voting that haven't voted yet, you know. But just ignore the narrative engineers. Like when I watch the debates, for example, I watch it on C-SPAN because I don't care much for the pundits. Yeah, enthusiasm against Trump. So that's a real thing. Hate is a powerful emotion. I don't know if it's a motivating one though. Like you still have to vote for somebody. Like I just remember, you know, all my Republican and conservative friends in 2012 who were voting for Mitt Romney because they hated Obama so much. I'm like, usually those types of candidates, usually people who are a protest candidate don't win. Because ultimately, in the end, you got to still be willing to cast a vote for the guy. You got to be willing to stand in line and do what it takes to vote. And it takes enthusiasm for that. So let me pull this up real quick again. The enthusiasm question. He does ask it. Okay, so for my candidate, against my candidate. So let me scroll over here. So Trump is 80% for, and Biden's only 53% for. That's no candidate has ever won with that kind of gap. And then when you go to enthusiasm over here, extremely enthusiastic. Let me come back up here. So Trump is winning the extremely by 12 points. And extremely is the best indicator of how likely you are to vote. And again, the extremely winner wins every year. Like that's what you're looking for. So like I said, it would just be a very buck of the trend for Biden to win despite that. Protest candidates just don't win. And I think the hate is amplified by the media because the media lives in their Washington and New York bubbles and makes it seem like it's a lot more than it really is. Like I'm the people who truly like hate Trump, maybe 20% of the electorate. And then you just have people who don't like Trump, but they don't hate him, you know? They don't let him like live rent free in their minds. So I just think the voices are amplified. Exactly, DRU. Betting for someone or voting for someone makes you stand in line, not voting against someone. You're right. Yeah, Trump's getting. I remember his last rally in 2016. It was after midnight, and I was living on the West Coast at the time, and it was still pretty late. He's closing in Michigan for a reason. Like everyone thinks Pennsylvania, it's all coming down to Pennsylvania, but he's closing in Michigan instead of Pennsylvania because he thinks Pennsylvania and all the Supreme Court stuff won't matter if he can take Michigan. Do I think when sports say NBA, NFL, MLB say go vote or implying to vote one way or another? Duh. I even commented on the Texas Rangers Twitter page because they had like a bunch of Rangers players saying like go vote, and the subtext of stuff like that is vote Democrat, of course. Because they know that the people that they're targeting with stuff like that, when celebrities are like go out and vote, and athletes, they're targeting low propensity voters to get out and vote because the Biden needs low propensity voters to win. By low propensity, I mean minorities and young people. Those are who are being targeted with those campaigns, and that's why they do it, because they need those to turn out. Yeah, of course it's saying they're implying to vote Democrat. It's the subtext. It's obvious. Yeah, like PBX, I think you're right there. I just don't see them going full out early calls, irresponsible calls like they did with Florida in 2000 or North Carolina in 2016. Like, they called Florida before the Panhandle closed in 2000, and North Carolina, they called North Carolina for Clinton, and Trump ended up winning by 4. Like, I don't know if we're going to get any irresponsible calls this time because of all the mail-in votes, because like I said, if it goes how I'm thinking it's going to go, and they count all the actual in-person votes quickly because, you know, those are easier to count fast, then it's going to look like Trump's ahead everywhere. So I don't know if they can make those calls early without being totally irresponsible. But I could very well see them dragging their feet on states that Trump is clearly going to win. Like, remember in 2016, I already brought this up, but in 2016, Trump won Georgia pretty easily, and yet they took forever to call Georgia. Like, it got called very late, and it was like, why did they take so long to call it when it was obviously Trump won? So there's something, you know, shenanigans involved. They did the same thing with Trump overall. Like, it was clear Trump was going to win the election, and they just took forever to officially call it. So I think they're going to drag their feet on states Trump wins, and they're going to be very quick to call states Biden wins. So that's why I don't think you should watch the networks, the narrative engineers. I agree, DRU. Like, I was never a big Obama fan. I wasn't, but I didn't let him live rent-free in my mind. I didn't, you know, blame everything on him. I didn't, you know, go the lengths to trash him and everything. And I think that's what we see. Like I said, I think the anti-Trump hate, the voices of Trump haters are amplified to make them seem like there's a lot of them. And I think there's not. Most people, they might not like him, but they're not going to hate him, you know? Do I think they'll be able to cheat their way to victory? Oh, I mean, I already said cheating's going to happen, guys. Cheating is going to happen, but here's the thing with cheating. It's very hard to cheat in large numbers. Like, when you cheat an election, you cheat here and there and nickel and dime your way. But anything massive is going to set off, you know, you can't get away with anything massive. You just can't. Cheating is going to happen in Philadelphia. It's going to happen in Detroit. It's going to happen in Nevada. You know, you just have to overcome it. You have to overcome the margin of fraud. And I think the Trump campaign knows that. And that's why they have their targets the way they have them. You know, it's just something you have to overcome. But I've also heard some rumblings about a program that the CIA has called Hammer, which is where they, like, rig the software process of electronic votes during the handoffs to siphon 3% away from Trump and give 3% to Biden. I think Steve Bannon was talking about it today. But Sidney Powell said she was aware and that the Trump campaign is aware of that. But, you know, if they're going to steal the election, they're going to steal it, and there's nothing we can do about it. So there's no point in worrying about it. You know, that's kind of thing. They're like, you know, if voting mattered, they wouldn't let us do it. And I'm like, no, the reason they want us to vote, if you're a conspiracy type who believes that elections are, you know, fake, the reason they want us to vote so is if they do steal elections, it appears like it was the will of the people. If the people don't think it was the will of the people, then they're going to revolt. But if it appears like it was, then they're going to, you know, not contest it. Yeah, political commercials are out of control. Yeah, DRU, I heard. I think Robert Cahaley at Trafalgar Group was the one who said that he needs to win by 4 or 5 to overcome the margin of cheating. But who's to say he didn't in 2016? Who's to say he didn't really win by 4 or 5 in 2016, right? Yeah, I think Rich Barris has also said the same thing. He probably won a lot of states by more than what the actual margin was in 2016. Yeah, HPC, that's how the Democrats have operated the past couple of cycles. They pick good-looking, smooth-talking people as their candidates, and then they run them as total moderates, independents, and just get them in front of cameras and on TV and in commercials, talking smoothly and giving out platitudes that sound good and make people feel good, but shallow on policy. That's how Democrats have run. That's how they won the House in 2018, and that's how they're running this year. They're running on style instead of substance, and it works. A lot of people like John Ossoff because he's a smooth talker, looks good, and all of that. They don't care about his policy. They just vote for him because of that, and it's effective. Hate the Democrats all you want for it, but it works. That's how Beto O'Rourke ran here in Texas. I still remember his campaign ads. He had like a camera set up on his fireplace mantle and just looked at the camera and he was like, "Hi, I think we are too divided. We need a candidate who's going to bring us together instead of drag us apart. And we are better than the," just vague platitudes like that about how we need to come together, kumbaya, all that. That's what his campaign was in 2018, guys. He had no substance. I think the only issues he actually ran on was healthcare. But that's how Democrats have operated, and it's smart. It's smart. More people than you think vote on style rather than substance, especially Democrats. Yeah. All right. I'm starting to lose my voice. I should probably save some of it for tomorrow. I might pop in tomorrow on a stream real quick, guys, just to talk about what's going on. I might post on Twitter about what's going on. We'll see. But like I said, just to close out this video, I'm more confident in a Trump win now than I was at this time in 2016. And just based on what I see, what I'm privy to, I think it's going to probably be a repeat. It's going to be close, don't get me wrong. But just to close it out, don't watch the networks tomorrow. Avoid the networks, avoid the cable networks. Find a good internet stream to watch to follow the results. I know I said I was about to leave, but Andrew Alfredson, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up. All right. Gosh, I'm going to stay on a little bit longer just to cover this. Man, I don't know how Trump does 5 rallies away. I'm already losing my voice, and I've only been talking for, 3 hours? All right. So say a map like this happens. Say a map like that happens. Trump wins 270 to 268. Has anyone ever seen The Sopranos, where the episode where they intimidate the jury member to vote innocent on the murder trial? That's exactly what would happen in this scenario right here, a 270 to 268 result. Damn well there would be actors out there who would try to find some elector in one of these states. They only need to pick off 1 or 2 and bribe them or intimidate them or whatever to vote against Trump in the Electoral College. That our country would not be able to survive that. That's what I'm going to say. Our country would not be able to survive that. That would ignite a civil war. But I guarantee you they would try, and that's why this scenario worries me a lot. It does. And on the flip side, I don't think our country can survive a scenario like in the 2004 Washington governor race, or the 2008 Minnesota Senate race, or even the 2018 Orange County congressional races in California. Our country couldn't survive that either, where that scenario would be where, it's all coming down to Pennsylvania, say the map looks like this, right? Say the map looks like this. It's all come down to Pennsylvania, even on electoral votes. Trump is ahead in Pennsylvania, and all of a sudden those ballots that were allowed to be counted 3 days after the election with no postmark or signatures come in, and they're all overwhelmingly for Biden, and Biden wins by a hair. By a hair. I don't think our country would survive that either. By survive, I mean we would still be standing, but that would just further devolve this country into civil war. Like, on the road to a civil war. Yeah, the faithless electors really do worry me. Like, I'll try to like pop in tomorrow, but I'll be too focused on what's going on. So we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, I might pop in for a little bit though. Good luck everybody on any of your bets you're making. Oh man, it's gonna be interesting tomorrow. I'll tell you that. All right, guys, I'm gonna